the ice and fire demon god of Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 551. It's time for her to get out of Hogwarts Castle. Dumbledore's expression was a bit complicated. Robbing Gringotts was not in his style, but if he wanted to obtain the Hufflepuff Cup and destroy it, Gringotts was an unavoidable obstacle. After all, those damn goblins would not let Dumbledore in to get Voldemort's Horcrux, just because Dumbledore was the greatest white wizard of the century and the Lestrange family's vault stored the Horcrux. Those damn goblins wished for chaos in the wizarding world, and for the wizards to fight among themselves. They have been coveting the wizarding world for a long time. While Dumbledore was struggling, Lin En continued, Gringotts' defense system is very complete, and we can believe that they have ways to resist demon-level wizards. Therefore, if we want to attack head-on and rob Gringotts, we need at least 2 demon-level wizards. When Professor Dumbledore has planned our action plan, please call me through the two-way mirror, and I will arrive on time. We must win the Hufflepuff Gold Cup, don't we? Lin En looked into Dumbledore's blue eyes and said so. Hearing this, Dumbledore smiled and nodded. Dumbledore did not ask why they had to attack Gringotts head-on. Those are 2 demon-level wizards. They still have to have style. You can't let 2 demon-level wizards join forces to attack and then do sneaky things, right? Exclamation mark. If you want to fight, you have to fight openly. As for whether those damn goblins would cause trouble for Dumbledore and Lin after their identities were exposed, the defense system of those damn goblins could resist the Demon King level wizards, but that was only limited to the interior of Gringotts. They simply did not have the courage to leave the tortoise shell and cause trouble for the 2 Demon King level wizards. Lin was even less afraid of the attacks of public opinion. After all, a large part of the daily profit was now in Lin's hands. It would be fine if those damn goblins were a little sensible. If they were relentless, Lin would not mind taking back the control of the financial system of the British wizarding world on behalf of the Ministry of Magic. Thank you, Lin. These days I will continue to observe the details of this memory and formulate an action plan accordingly. But this is not an easy task. I still need some time. Dumbledore said so. Lin and Dumbledore left the Pensieve. Lin looked at the sky outside through the window. It was dusk. Lin was a little surprised. Bellatrix's memory was not long in his opinion, but they stayed in the Pensieve for an afternoon. Crouch has prepared dinner. Let's eat together. The door was pushed open, and Sirius stood at the door and said to Lin and Dumbledore. Lin estimated the time and found that it was still in time, so he went downstairs with Dumbledore to eat. On the other side, in Hogwarts Castle, in the afternoon, the little wizard of the DA army found that the old chemical feather pen in his pocket, which had been silent for a long time, was emitting heat again, and the words on the pen body also changed. You know, since Merita betrayed the DA army and the DA army's gathering was terminated, they were looking forward to the fact that the old chemical feather pen that had been silent could be used again one day. However, after noticing the changes in the old chemical feather pen, they couldn't help but feel worried. Today, Hogwarts Castle has almost become Umbridge's world. Do they really have a safe place to practice magic freely? Exclamation mark. For this reason, Hermione also represented the young wizards of the DA army and found Irina, who had issued the notice of the rally, and told Irina about everyone's doubts. After learning about everyone's confusion, Irina smiled and said, Don't worry, the rally will be held at the old place, and no one will find out. Before the rally begins, I will cast a forgetfulness spell on the pink toad to ensure that she will not remember anything. Hearing this, Hermione opened her mouth wide, and she said in surprise, Irina, are you going to attack Umbridge again? But if she finds out that her memory has been tampered with, I'm afraid our situation will be even worse, right? Irina said indifferently, if she finds out, I will cast another forgetfulness spell on her to make her forget again. Anyway, as long as she can drag it out for 2.5 months, she should get out of Hogwarts Castle. After getting Irina's reply, although Hermione was still a little worried, she still relayed Irina's reply to the young wizards of the DA army intact. Great. In the common rooms of various colleges, such cheers were heard one after another. Almost every young wizard in the DA army was happy about the restart of the DA army. Of course, those young wizards who did not join the DA army felt puzzled when they saw them celebrating something like this. This time the gathering time was at 11 o'clock in the evening and lasted until 3 o'clock in the morning. One advantage of this was that Hogwarts Castle was under curfew and no other young wizards would notice their actions. They could also directly knock down hostile targets such as Umbridge and Filch with the stunning spell and modify their memories with the oblivion spell. Another advantage was that after Umbridge was cast with the oblivion spell by Irina, she would not think that she was being plotted against the first time she woke up, but would think that she was too sleepy and fell asleep in her office, just like last time. After all, after Umbridge increased the hours of everyone's defense against the dark arts class to 3 times the original time, she herself was also very tired. But thinking of her big plan in the Ministry of Magic, Umbridge was able to persist and target all the little wizards without exception. Therefore, even if Umbridge found that she had lost her memory after 11 o'clock in the evening after waking up, she could hardly detect any clues. After 11 o'clock in the evening, it was also time for wizards to go to bed. It was reasonable for her to fall asleep at her desk because she was too sleepy. Time soon came to 10 o'clock in the evening. The little wizards of the DA army put on a layer of disillusionment charm that they had already been able to cast skillfully, sneaked out of the common room of their college, and quietly came to the room of requirement on the 8th floor. Irina was waiting in the corridor on the 8th floor. After putting everyone in the room of requirement, she glanced at the two-way mirror in her hand. After learning that Lin had not returned yet, she let everyone practice freely in the room of requirement while she carried a wand and went to the direction of the defense against the dark arts professor's office. Allow open. Irina chanted the unlocking spell and easily opened the door of the defense against the dark arts professor's office. Looking at Umbridge, who was looking surprised on the desk, Irina lowered her eyes slightly, raised her wand, and whispered, "Obligate." Chapter 552. She is just a child. Under Umbridge's incredible gaze, a white light hit her head, causing her to faint and fall on the desk. To be on the safe side, Irina cast a coma spell on Umbridge to prevent her from waking up midway and interfering with the DA's gathering. As the headmaster of Hogwarts appointed by the Ministry of Magic, Umbridge never thought that these timid little wizards would dare to break into her office and attack her. Therefore, Umbridge did not cast protective magic such as the anti-unlocking spell on the door of the office, which also allowed Irina's actions to be faster and more concealed. Although it is not impossible to replace the unlocking spell with the explosive spell, the door paired with the repairing spell will be somewhat different from the original door after all, and will leave traces of magic. After dealing with Umbridge, Irina locked the door and left, returning to the 8th floor. When she came to the corridor on the 8th floor, a white light happened to light up not far from her, and Lin's figure was also teleported from number 12 Grimmauld Place by the transmission of the any door key. "Is everyone here?" Lin saw Irina coming towards him, and he smiled gently and asked. Irina nodded. She took Lin's arm and said softly, "Everyone is here, and I have also dealt with Umbridge. She will not wake up until tomorrow morning at least." Lin and Irina walked into the room of requirement side by side. At this time, all the young wizards of the DA army had already found a cushion and sat down, just like every time before. Everyone looked at Lin expectantly, looking forward to the first meeting of the DA army after the restart. "I'm very happy." Lin looked at everyone with a smile on his face. "I'm very happy to see everyone gathered here, and at the same time, welcome everyone back here, back to this place, where we can speak freely." Everyone applauded in cooperation. Lin En still had a smile on his face. He pressed his hands down, signaling everyone to be quiet, and then said, "Everyone knows why the DA army was suspended, but everyone may still be a little confused. Why did I not restart the DA army in the past few months, but suddenly restart it at this time, and call everyone here?" Hearing Lin En's words, some people listened curiously. They were indeed confused about this question. If Lin En was not afraid of Umbridge, then he could ignore Umbridge, go against the wind, and continue the DA army's rally, but Lin En did not do so, but temporarily avoided the limelight, and suspended the DA army's rally. But if Lin En was indeed afraid of Umbridge, then why did he restart the DA army at this point in time, and even take action against Umbridge, in advance to ensure the safety of the rally? Exclamation mark. Lin said softly, I think everyone has discovered that no matter whether it is a letter we send to the outside world or a letter sent to us by the outside world, once there is content about the situation in the outside world, it will be intercepted and cannot reach the recipient, right? Several young wizards from Ravenclaw Academy nodded. They did ask their parents about the situation in the outside world, but they never received a reply. They understood that it was not that their parents did not reply to them, but that all the replies were intercepted by Umbridge. Umbridge cut off our contact with the outside world, making us unclear about the current situation in the British wizarding world, Lin said softly, but now, I want to tell them to everyone, and at the same time, they are also the reason for me to restart the DA army. Under the eager eyes of everyone, Lin told everyone that Fudge's power was suppressed. The members of the Wizengamot once again launched an impeachment against Fudge, and this time Fudge's situation was extremely unfavorable. Umbridge won't stay in Hogwarts for long, Lin said calmly. Perhaps she will be driven away soon, and this time may be 2 months later, or it may be 2 days later. When Fudge steps down, it will be time for her to be liquidated. After hearing Lin's words, everyone finally understood. Umbridge is about to be driven away, so why should they be afraid of her? Exclamation mark. Lin continued, when Fudge steps down, I will tell you the information. At that time, everyone will take revenge and complain. Lin's mouth corners slightly raised, which made people shudder. After thinking that they could take revenge on Umbridge, the pink toad, almost everyone showed a hideous smile on their faces, like a devil crawling out of hell. Let's get back to the point. Marita Edgemore betrayed us, and revealed the existence of the DA army to Umbridge. I officially announce that she will be removed from the DA army. Lin coughed lightly, attracting everyone's attention, and then said loudly. After hearing Marita's name, many people gnashed their teeth. If she hadn't betrayed everyone, they wouldn't have been implicated, and hadn't been able to attend the DA army's gatherings for several months. Even Professor Dumbledore, whom they respected the most, was driven out of Hogwarts Castle. Seeing that everyone was united in hatred of the enemy, Lin said, however, I hope everyone won't hurt her maliciously. She left the DA army, but for now, she is still our classmate, and has received the punishment she deserves. Magic contract, isn't it? Hearing this, everyone was stunned. They remembered that they had signed their names on the magic contract since the day they joined the DA army. Once they betrayed the DA army, they would suffer severe punishment. Severe punishment. Many little wizards looked over curiously. After Marita's betrayal, they didn't find anything unusual from Marita, but Lin wouldn't lie to them about this matter. So, what punishment did Marita receive? Marita told me that she can't use magic anymore. At this time, Marita's friend, Zhang Qiyu, said with concern. Lin En nodded calmly and said, yes, this is the punishment of the magic contract. From that day on, she will become a squib, until... Before Lin En finished speaking, everyone was in an uproar. They widened their eyes, and there was disbelief in their eyes. You know, for a wizard, becoming a squib is like an ordinary person losing hearing and vision, becoming a deaf mute and blind disabled person, which they can never accept. Let the wizard become a squib. Even if this is a punishment for betrayal, it is too vicious. After all, Marita is just an underage wizard. Zhang Qiyu widened her eyes, and said in disbelief. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 553 Friends and Enemies. Underage little wizard, Lin En said softly, yes, I have always treated her as a child, not a witch with full responsibility. Zhang Qiyu questioned, then why do you still use such vicious means to hurt her? Let a good witch lose her magic, and become a squib. This method is simply outrageous. Although Zhang Qiyu had complained about Marita after she betrayed the DA army, and even had the idea of breaking up, Zhang Qiyu never thought of making Marita lose her identity as a wizard and return to the muggle world. For an ordinary person who used to be, the magic world is like a caged bird that has walked out of an iron cage and seen the whole world. No one would be willing to return to that cage. Therefore, after learning that the penalty for breach of the magic contract is to become a muggle, Zhang Qiyu couldn't help but feel a little disgusted. Hearing Zhang Qiyu's questioning, Lin En's face gradually turned cold. Vicious? Lin En asked coldly. Perhaps you don't know yet what is the only ending for those Death Eaters and traitors who fell into my hands? Not far away, Irving, who stood silently behind Lin En on the left, answered softly, death. When they heard the word death, everyone was horrified, and there was a touch of fear in their eyes when they looked at Lin En. Yes, death. Lin En's tone became calm again. Those traitors who I think have full responsibility will only end up with death. Only death can justify the harm suffered by those who were betrayed. Zhang Qiyu was silent. After a long while, she moved her lips twice. But, she is my friend after all. Hearing Zhang Qiyu's voice as thin as a mosquito's buzz, many young wizards around frowned. There were even young wizards from the same house of Ravenclaw College who looked at Zhang Qiyu with strange eyes. Oh, friends? Lin En asked again. Do you think so? Before Zhang Qiyu could reply, Lin En took 2 steps back and cast his eyes on all the young wizards of the DA army in the room of requirement. Lin En said loudly, very good. Since Qiyu Zhang mentioned the word friend, then at this gathering, I will tell you what a friend is and what an enemy is. Zhang Qiyu hung her head. She knew that her words might be a little unreasonable. She didn't know what to say, so she had to listen to Lin En's speech quietly. Lin En waved the magic wand in his hand, and a series of illusion arrays appeared on the ground of the room of requirement, and the lights of magic spells including the disillusionment spell, the iron armor spell and the divine edge spell lit up in the air, and were displayed in front of everyone. In the past 6 months or so at the DA army gathering, we think we have done our duty, and passed on the magic we have mastered to everyone, and refined so many illusion arrays, to conduct illusion tests for everyone, and improve everyone's magic level. We are classmates, partners, and future comrades in arms. At the DA army gathering, we have never been stingy with our knowledge, and have never abandoned any of our partners. We have a clear conscience. I think we should be everyone's friends, right? Lin En opened his arms, and looked at everyone. Listening to Lin En's speech, everyone felt their blood boiling. They waved their fists, and responded to Lin En. Some people even used their magic wands to hit a golden yes on the ceiling of the room of requirement. Lin En smiled at everyone's reactions, but soon his face turned cold again. After talking about friends, then next, let me talk about what is an enemy. Lin En said lightly, and when he mentioned the word enemy, he emphasized his tone. This made all the little wizards in the room of requirement feel nervous. Enemy. Some little wizards murmured, but their eyes were a little confused. The little wizards of the DA army included those in grades 3 to 7. The minds of those in grades 6 and 7 were relatively mature, and their worldviews were basically set. But those in grades 3, 4, and 5 did not. They were still young, and did not have a fixed worldview, and the definition of the enemy in their minds was a little vague. Classmates who teased and bullied them on weekdays could be enemies. Professors who punished them with confinement and were very strict could be enemies. The Ministry of Magic that made laws and restricted them could be enemies. Even someone who accidentally bumped into them on the road could be an enemy. In their view, the enemy was not a very serious existence that was a life and death struggle, but a common title that could be hung on the head of anyone they disliked. The so-called enemy is someone who is against you and whose existence is the biggest threat to you. Voldemort and the Death Eaters take human life lightly and kill innocent people indiscriminately. They may kill you and your parents at any time. They are enemies. The people of Umbridge and Fudge's faction hurt our bodies and imprison our minds. They are enemies. And those friends who betrayed us. They brought Death Eaters into our homes and killed our loved ones. They told Umbridge and others our secrets, forcing us to swallow our anger and be like rats crossing the street. They destroyed our emotions and destroyed everything we cherished. They, those guys who were once called friends by us, are also our enemies. Lin said loudly. Even without the blessing of the sound booming spell, his voice was still clearly heard by everyone in this extremely quiet room of requests. Lin's definition of friends and enemies awakened the little wizards. Zhang Qiu, who was speaking for Merita before, also showed a guilty look. Lin En abolished Merita's magic power and made her a dumb cannon. This method was cruel, but Merita betrayed them and caused them to fall into such a situation. How could it not be cruel? Exclamation mark. Those little wizards who hated Merita's betrayal and were frightened by Lin En's method of abolishing her magic power also waved their fists again and echoed Lin En's words. After saying all this, Lin En's face once again brought a smile. Since we are gathered together and have talked so much about friends and enemies, then, in the next assembly time, please experience the so-called friends and enemies for yourself. Lin En said with a smile. As Lin En's voice fell, the 5 illusion arrays that had been refined in the room of requirement suddenly expanded, and all the little wizards were covered in it. With the help of the alchemical detector refined by Nicholas Flamel, the single illusion array refined by Lin En can already be used by multiple little wizards. These 5 magic arrays can cover more than 50 young wizards of the DA army in the room of requirement at the same time. In fact, I have personally experienced this speech about friends and enemies. When I was still in high school, I don't know which classmate went to 12,345 to report a certain system of the school, and then our dean directly called all of us out to hold a year-end meeting. However, this dean was really funny. The friend he mentioned was a gift to us for forming a school basketball team, which was a matter of course, and then he said that he was our friend because he did these things. Then, he directly started to criticize the student who went to 12,345 to report the school, saying that the student was an enemy. Regardless of whether the student was right to report the school, let's just say that as a dean, it's a bit funny to regard your own students as enemies? Exclamation mark. And in a place like a year-end meeting with hundreds of people, he openly said that students are enemies. I'm not exaggerating. Next, let me tell you what is an enemy. The one who went to 12,345 to report our school is the enemy is absolutely the original sentence. Chapter 554. News from Dumbledore on the eve of the Owl's exam. The scenes presented by these illusion arrays seem to be different from the previous illusion tests. Irina looked at everything presented in the illusions of these little wizards thoughtfully. She turned her head and looked at Lin En beside her. As the owner of these 5 illusions, Lin En controlled all the authority of these 5 illusion arrays and could grant it to others. Therefore, Irina was not judged as a target by the illusion array and included in the illusion. Instead, like Lin En, she could see through everything in the illusion array and spy the contents of other little wizards' illusions. Lin En said softly, if the previous illusion test improved their magic level, then today's illusion test will refine their hearts. Refine their hearts? Irina hesitated. You mean, let them experience the betrayal they may encounter in the future in the illusion in advance? As expected of my Irina, Lin En nodded with a smile in his eyes. In addition, they will also experience the importance of having a teammate who can trust their backs to each other, and the importance of identifying potential traitors. After getting Lin En's answer, Irina just smiled lightly. She took Lin En's arm again and watched everything that happened in the illusion of these little wizards with him. With the computing power provided by the alchemy detector, these 5 illusion arrays did not show any signs of exceeding the operating load, even if they accommodated more than 50 little wizards to undergo the illusion test at the same time. In fact, in this illusion test of refining the heart, the computing power consumed by the alchemy detector to generate the illusion was not much. Lin En set up some plot templates in advance, which made the alchemy detector completely unnecessary to design the contents of the illusion for these little wizards from scratch, and only needed to apply the templates set by Lin En directly. However, the scenes in each illusion, generated by the alchemy detector were randomly generated, and the appearance, voice, and name of the NPC were all randomly generated. The only similarity between these illusions was their plot routines. In the illusion test, some little wizards were facing a siege by Death Eaters, and they became the most solid comrades with the NPCs generated by the illusion. They fought side by side and entrusted their backs to each other, and finally escaped from the siege of the Death Eaters. Some little wizards joined an Aura team, but there was a traitor in that Aura team. The traitor sold all the intelligence of the Aura team, causing the entire Aura team to be buried with him. Those little wizards experienced the same illusion dozens of times before they successfully removed the traitor and changed the ending of the Aura team being annihilated. Some young wizards were in a more miserable situation. There was almost no part of the illusion they created that they could manipulate. They were like bystanders, watching their most trusted companions betray themselves and bring Death Eaters into their homes to kill their parents. Looking at the scenes in the illusion, these young wizards wanted to cut the traitor into pieces. In this evening's gathering, almost every young wizard repeatedly experienced the illusion test of these 3 templates, and they also had a clearer understanding of the concept of so-called friends and enemies on this night. When Lin En lifted the illusion array that covered the entire room of requirement and liberated the young wizards who were still in the illusion, everyone looked at Lin En with complicated expressions. They thought they could continue to improve their magic level in this gathering, but they didn't expect to be taught a lesson. However, this time they seemed to have gained much more than using the illusion test to improve their magic level. This made these young wizards feel difficult to describe, but they were grateful to Lin En. After the end of the rally of the restarted DA army, the DA army's rally time returned to the original once a week. This made the little wizards of the DA army very happy. But Umbridge was unlucky. Every DA army rally meant that Umbridge was cast a forgetfulness spell and a coma spell. Over time, Umbridge also had some doubts about the fact that she would sleep for one night every week. Unfortunately, she didn't have any evidence. After Irina broke into the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor's office and cast a spell on Umbridge, she would use magic to cover up the traces and repair or lock the door, which meant that Umbridge was destined to find no physical evidence. As the headmaster appointed by the Ministry of Magic, Umbridge was actually not recognized by Hogwarts Castle itself, which meant that neither the portraits in the castle corridor nor the ghosts in the castle were willing to tell her whether someone broke into the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor's office. This made Umbridge lose the way to find witnesses. However, the almost fixed time of drowsiness and memory loss every week made Umbridge gradually panic. She tried various ways to find the truth every day, including but not limited to installing all chemical props with similar monitoring effects in the office, ambushing in the office in advance to fight back against sneak attackers, and equipping herself with all chemical equipment that can make her sober immediately. However, none of these methods worked. Whether it was all chemical props with similar monitoring effects or all chemical equipment that could make her sober, it was impossible to escape the eyes of Lin, the master of alchemy. After casting the forgetfulness spell and the coma spell on Umbridge, Lin would make the all chemical props prepared by Umbridge in advance temporarily overload, causing the all chemical array to temporarily stagnate and fail to operate. According to the theory of electricity, that should be called short circuit. As for Umbridge ambushing them in the office in advance, no one really thinks that Umbridge can defeat a demon level wizard by sneak attack! Therefore, even if Umbridge had already noticed that something was wrong, she had no way to deal with Lin and Irina. As the days passed and the day of the Owl's exam for the 5th year wizards approached, Lin and Irina became more and more unscrupulous. Anyway, Umbridge would die soon, so what if she found out that it was me who did it? Time soon came to June, and there was only 1 week left before Irina's Owl's exam. However, on this day, a message suddenly appeared on the two-way mirror in the hands of Lin, Irina and Professor McGonagall. Lin, Irina, come to number 12 Grimmauld Place as soon as possible. There is something important to discuss with you. This was the message sent by Dumbledore. Chapter 555 to experts. After receiving the message from Dumbledore, Lin and Irina, who were in the Slytherin dormitory and the Gryffindor common room respectively, took out a portal key from their pockets without hesitation. The Malfoy trio was not in the dormitory at this time, so Lin immediately activated the portal key in his hand and teleported to number 12 Grimmauld Place. Irina, holding the portal key, ran back to her dormitory under the puzzled eyes of Harry and others, and then activated the portal key. Less than a minute after Dumbledore's message appeared on their two-way mirrors, the two of them appeared in the living room of the Black Ancestral home one after another. Professor Dumbledore, have you made a battle plan to rob Gringotts? As soon as Lin's feet landed, he cast his eyes on Dumbledore sitting on the main seat. Irina, who was then teleported to Lin's side, also looked over. They understood that the only possibility that Dumbledore asked them to come at this time was that Dumbledore had already made plans to rob Gringotts. Dumbledore smiled and nodded. He said softly, "Yes, Lin, Irina, I have made a battle plan for this time. In view of the powerful alchemical defense means of Gringotts and the fire dragons guarding the vault, I have invited 2 experts in this field. Perhaps they can provide us with good help." Hearing Dumbledore's words, Irina couldn't help but be a little surprised. She asked, "Experts? Can they be trusted?" The fewer people know about the battle plan to rob Gringotts, the better. Dumbledore just smiled and motioned Lin and Irina to look behind them. The 2 were stunned and turned around. After seeing a middle-aged man and an old man sitting on the chairs behind them, Lin and Irina's faces showed surprise and astonishment. The 2 experts in this field, mentioned by Dumbledore, were Lin's teacher, Wallace and Green, and Irina's teacher, Newt Scamander. Teacher. Lin and Irina looked at Green and Newt respectively, and spoke in unison. Lin said with a smile, "So, teacher, are you the expert that Professor Dumbledore mentioned? I didn't expect you to come all the way from France to participate in this operation." Green laughed and said, "Robbing Gringotts is such an interesting thing. How can it be done without your teacher?" On the other side, Irina squeezed to Newt's side and sat down, and asked in a low voice, "Teacher, did Professor Dumbledore ask you to come to deal with that dragon?" Newt nodded slightly and said, "Yes, that dragon is indeed pitiful. If possible, I hope to take it into the suitcase and treat it." Irina hesitated and said, "Teacher, in fact, my suitcase can also accommodate a dragon. You don't have to come in person." Newt smiled and said, "Of course, the suitcase I'm talking about is your suitcase, but as your teacher, I still hope to be able to verify your learning results. This time, the operation to rob Gringotts is a good opportunity." Seeing that the 2 pairs of teachers and apprentices were chatting happily, Dumbledore had to interrupt them and said, "Everyone, don't forget the purpose of our gathering here." As Dumbledore finished speaking, Lin, Irina, Green and Newt finally looked over. Dumbledore put a piece of parchment on the table and said, "This is the date of action I set. The time is 3 PM on that day. Everyone, take a look. Do you have any objections?" The date on the parchment was more than a week later. Lin, Green and Newt took a quick look and shook their heads after confirming that there was nothing else important. They said they had no objection. But Irina frowned and said, "This day seems to be the last day of our RALS exam. If I remember correctly, our History of Magic exam will be held at 2 o'clock in the afternoon of this day." Dumbledore asked, "Do we need to set another time?" The main reason is that that day happens to be the end date of the impeachment of Fudge initiated by the Wizards of the Wizengamot. Whether Fudge steps down or not, it will be set on that day. On that day, the Ministry of Magic is destined to be busy and unable to send auras to support Gringotts in time. Lin has been following up on the impeachment of Fudge initiated by those members of the Wizengamot. Even many of the rhythms are behind the push of the Roll family. Even the date for the final impeachment result was operated by Lin. After all, according to the records in the original book, Umbridge will break into Hagrid's hut with the auras of the Ministry of Magic on the penultimate night of this year's OWLS exam and launch an attack on Hagrid. This is the best opportunity. Many little wizards like Hagrid, and the little wizards of the DA Army will not be an exception. They would not sit idly by when Hagrid was attacked. Therefore, as long as Fudge could be impeached and removed from office on time the next day, and could no longer provide assistance to Umbridge, these little wizards would be able to attack Umbridge and the auras she brought with them unscrupulously, venting all their anger for the whole year on this pink toad. This also met the requirement that Fudge's resignation and Umbridge's expulsion occurred simultaneously. It was just unexpected that Dumbledore actually listed the time point of Fudge's resignation as the best time for them to rob Gringotts. Dumbledore's plan was indeed perfect. Under the impeachment of the Wizengamot members, coupled with the power of the Roll family and the Daily Prophet, Fudge's resignation could be said to be a foregone conclusion. As for whether Fudge would resist in this matter and not admit the result of the impeachment, Dumbledore and Lin were not worried. First, the auras in the Aura office are not that weak. Even if Fudge does not admit the result of the impeachment, they can still take Fudge out of the minister's office and drive him out of the Ministry of Magic. Second, Fudge's resistance is just what Dumbledore wants. Fudge's resistance will definitely cause chaos in the Ministry of Magic, and the Ministry of Magic itself is already busy with its own affairs, so how can it have the extra energy to send auras to support Gringotts? Exclamation mark. Even if Fudge rolls out of the Ministry of Magic obediently and allows the Ministry of Magic to smoothly elect a new Minister of Magic, the Ministry of Magic will not be able to complete the support for Gringotts in time. With the support of the Rowell family, the rise of Old Barty is inevitable. As one of their comrades in arms, Old Barty will naturally coordinate from the side to prevent those auras from being dispatched so that Dumbledore's combat operations can proceed smoothly. Chapter 556 Completely destroy the anti-thief waterfall. No, let's do it that day. I only need to finish the questions within an hour, hand in the paper in advance, and I can come out, right? Irina shook her head and said so. Since that day was the best time, Irina would naturally not delay the operation of robbing Gringotts because of her own affairs. How could she be absent from such a fun thing as robbing Gringotts? Exclamation mark. What's more, even in the exams under the background of the exam-oriented education she received in her previous life, she was able to hand in the paper in advance and get a good score. Compared with her previous life, this owl's exam was simply too simple, so how could she not do it? Exclamation mark. For subjects like the history of magic that require rote memorization, she didn't need to use her brain too much, just fill in the content in her memory. After learning the brain block technique, she was able to control her brain well, and it was easy for her to check and mobilize the knowledge stored in her brain. Dumbledore said happily, well, since everyone has no objection to the time of the battle, let's discuss the specific battle plan for storming Gringotts. There is no need to talk about the battle plan for breaking into Gringotts from the front. I think that with our magic level, it is impossible to be knocked down by the goblins in the lobby. Then, what we really have to face are the various mechanisms under Gringotts and the fully armed goblins. First of all, we have to solve those mechanisms, mainly including the anti-thief waterfall and the vault door. Here we need to invite our Professor Green to speak. Dumbledore said, winking at Green. Hearing Dumbledore call him by the name he used when he taught in Hogwarts Castle, Green smiled knowingly. Green said, I carefully watched the scene about the anti-thief waterfall in Bellatrix's memory. I can roughly determine that the function of the anti-thief waterfall is similar to the liquid form of the forbidden magic stone. In other words, the way it washes away the disguise of the wizard is to forbid magic. Lin En asked, liquid forbidden magic stone. But after we pass through the anti-thief waterfall, even if there is still liquid from the anti-thief waterfall on our bodies, it will not affect our magic. The year Lin En entered Hogwarts Castle, he went to the Rowell family's vault in Gringotts to withdraw money, and he passed through the anti-thief waterfall. What Green said was indeed correct. Later, after Lin En felt the power of forbidden magic, he immediately thought of the anti-thief waterfall at that time. The two gave Lin En almost the same feeling. This also means that the underlying logic of the anti-thief waterfall is not a spell-breaking magic like the spell stop and all spells end, but an alchemical method similar to the power of forbidden magic. Hearing Lin's words, Green nodded thoughtfully, and parchment and a quill appeared in front of him. The quill wrote and drew on the parchment according to Green's thoughts. Well, originally this was just my guess, but Lin, your experience confirmed my guess. It seems that the anti-thief waterfall does not continuously release the magic forbidden power like the forbidden stone, but after contacting the living body, it injects the magic forbidden power into the body of the living body at one time. The alchemy array engraved at the source of the anti-thief waterfall is not as advanced as my alchemy array. Therefore, even if the anti-thief waterfall injects all the magic forbidden power into the body of the living body at one time, it can only seal its magic for a moment. After that, the anti-thief waterfall became an ordinary liquid. This is also the reason why the liquid of the anti-thief waterfall remaining on your body after you passed through the anti-thief waterfall could not continue to seal your magic. Green put away the parchment and quill in his hand and told everyone his conclusion. So, Dumbledore asked, what is your solution? It's very simple, even crude, Green said with a confident smile. However, this simplest method requires Lin En's cooperation, and must have Lin En's cooperation. Lin En took the initiative to ask, is there anything I can do, teacher? Green chuckled and said, Didn't your master teach you a secret method that can make all the alchemical arrays inside the alchemical creations you see emerge? You just need to make the alchemical array of the anti-thief waterfall appear from inside the anti-thief waterfall, so that we can all see it, and then I will personally break those alchemical arrays. The reason why the magic companies that produce alchemical products will not be discovered by other wizards is that their alchemists can hide the alchemical arrays of their alchemical products inside the alchemical products, and cannot be seen by others. Once these alchemical arrays can be seen by others, then any alchemist can reverse the refining methods of these alchemical arrays, and can replicate these alchemical products, or crack the functions of these alchemical products. The Flying Broom Company was one of them. When Lin was in the second match of the True Wizard tournament, the magic pattern booster on the back of the alchemical diving suit was copied from the alchemical array inside the firebolt. Similarly, as long as Lin could make the alchemical array inside the anti-thief waterfall appear, then Green could immediately reverse the method to crack the anti-thief waterfall. But after I did that, the anti-thief waterfall in Gringotts was completely useless. Unless the alchemical formula of the anti-thief waterfall is preserved, and the goblins can refine a new anti-thief waterfall, the anti-thief waterfall in Gringotts, England will disappear forever in the long river of history. But I don't think you care about the situation of those goblins. Green shrugged and said with a smile. Dumbledore and Lin both smiled. They went to rob Gringotts, so how could they care about the feelings of those goblins? Exclamation mark. As for the door of the vault, Green thought, and cast his eyes to Newt, who was next to Irina. The door of the vault seems to apply muggle biology. It is a means of verifying the genes of goblins. I think that requires the help of Mr. Scamander. Newt asked softly, what should I do? Green said, Mr. Scamander, you should have read muggle biology, right? I need you to make some petri dishes, and collect some goblin biological samples. I need to use those biological samples to make some goblin gloves that will allow the vault to identify us as goblins, so as to open the door of the vault. Newt nodded slightly and agreed. Newt has always been a person who is not ashamed to ask questions, especially when it comes to learning about magical animals. What's more, with the status of muggle biology, it is not the word below at all. Chapter 557, that was robbing Gringotts. The magical zoology of the magic world only includes the habits and characteristics of various magical animals, which can only be regarded as a macroscopic view in the field of biology in the muggle world. However, the magic world is much worse than the muggle world in the field of microscopic research, and it can even be said that there has been no research. Therefore, Newt, like Green, entered the muggle school to learn about the knowledge of biology. It is better to study than to be ashamed to ask questions. So far, the problem of the alchemical mechanism of Gringotts has been basically solved. The anti-thief waterfall will be solved by Lin and Green together, and the vault door will be cracked by the goblin gloves that Green is about to refine. Next, it is a way to solve the fire dragon guarding Gringotts. Then let our magical animal expert explain his point of view. Dumbledore smiled and nodded to Newt. Newt smiled and nodded to everyone, then said, this time, I will leave the battle plan of subduing the fire dragon to my student, and as a teacher, I will be responsible for checking her learning results, and before possible accidents occur, I will make up for the omissions, and take over her task. As he said, Newt turned his eyes to Irina. After learning that Newt actually gave her full responsibility for this task, Irina's pretty face could not help but show surprise. But after thinking of the knowledge about fire dragons that she learned from Newt, the surprise on her face was replaced by a touch of confidence. After thinking for a while, Irina said, if I were to arrange it, I would use the magic rice balls that the teacher gave me to lure the dragon, and use my own magical animal affinity to appease the irritable dragon and let it enter my suitcase obediently. After the dragon enters the suitcase, I will enter the suitcase to continue to appease and subdue the dragon, and try to complete it before we arrive at the vault. Finally, I will use the key to the random door to send the suitcase here in advance, and creature will be responsible for receiving it. Irina said so. After telling her plan, Irina looked at Newt, hoping to get Newt's comments. Newt nodded to her, indicating that there was nothing wrong with her plan. Dumbledore said happily, well, let's set the battle plan for the fire dragon. Finally, we should consider how to defeat the frontal defense of those goblins. Lin said, that depends on you, Professor Dumbledore. Do you intend to spare the lives of those goblins, or do you make it your main goal to consume the enemy's manpower, like you did with the Death Eaters? Hearing this, Dumbledore frowned imperceptibly. He said, although these goblins have impure intentions, for now, they have not done anything to harm the wizarding world. If possible, I hope to save the lives of those goblins. Lin nodded happily and said, okay, then the next battle plan will require Professor Dumbledore to be the main attacker, and I will be responsible for supporting you. Professor Dumbledore, the spell you are best at is a water prison curse. Compared with my fire magic, your spell is not that lethal. My fiendish fire is too lethal, and the forbidden magic fire has almost no effect on the alchemical cold weapons used by the goblins. Only the purple sky fire can suppress them in battle. Lin En said so. If Dumbledore's answer was to kill the goblins, then Lin En would naturally take over the position of the main attacker. With the strength of his fiendish fire, it would not be difficult to kill the defending goblins in a very short time. Even if the fiendish fire is not enough to kill the goblins, as long as they can drag the battle until night, the purple sky fire under the bright starry sky will exert its most powerful power. That is the power that can overturn the entire Gringotts. Lin En pondered for a while and said, since the battle plan to attack Gringotts has been decided, I think we still need a logistics personnel who can ensure our contact with the outside world and tell us Gringotts' reaction and the outside world's reaction to Gringotts being robbed in a timely manner. Hearing Lin En's words, Dumbledore and Irina looked at each other. Irina immediately said, Sirius. After we robbed Gringotts, the coordinates for evacuation were 12 Grimmauld Place. In this way, Sirius, who stayed in the Black Ancestral House, is the best candidate for the logistics personnel. Just as several people were discussing Sirius happened to walk down the stairs. Sirius looked at the four people curiously and asked, I think I heard you mentioned me? Dumbledore nodded slightly, and he asked softly, we need a logistics personnel in our battle plan. I wonder if you have this idea? Hearing this, Sirius' eyes lit up. Since he successfully escaped the crime, he has been staying at the Black Ancestral House. Except for living with Harry in the new house, bought on Privet Drive during Harry's summer vacation, he usually has nothing to do. This made him almost crazy. Therefore, when he heard that Dumbledore had something for him to do, he did not ask what it was, and immediately agreed. After Sirius agreed to join, Dumbledore told Sirius the whole story of their upcoming robbery of Gringotts. This included Bellatrix putting Hufflepuff's gold cup into Gringotts' vault, and the methods they discussed to deal with goblins and those alchemical mechanisms. After learning that Voldemort's Horcruxes were hidden in the Lestrange family's vault, Sirius couldn't help but be a little surprised. I didn't expect that Voldemort actually hid the Horcruxes in Gringotts' vault. Oh, let the goblins guard his Horcruxes for him. What a good plan. Sirius sneered. If Dumbledore was still the same Dumbledore as before, perhaps Dumbledore would still worry that forcing into Gringotts would trigger a new goblin rebellion, and for the sake of peace and stability in the British wizarding world, he would choose to use a gentle method to ask the goblins for the Horcruxes. But it is obviously impossible for the goblins to hand over the things in other people's vaults to Dumbledore, which would be in line with Voldemort's wishes. However, Dumbledore is no longer as pedantic as he used to be. Compared with the Goblin Rebellion, the damage that Voldemort and the Death Eaters can bring to the wizarding world is obviously more serious. For the sake of greater peace in the wizarding world, robbing Gringotts is obviously imperative. So, what should I do? When Sirius thought about participating in the event of robbing Gringotts, which could be recorded in history, his tone became excited. That's robbing Gringotts. Too cool, isn't it? Exclamation mark. Chapter 558. It is impossible for a murderer to go to the police station to prove his innocence. Green took the lead. He placed 6 little finger-sized metal pendants on the table and motioned everyone to pick them up. Lin En and Irina each picked up a metal pendant. They looked at the pendant and felt that it looked familiar. Soon, Lin En and Irina realized that this was the in-ear Bluetooth headset they wore in their previous lives. Exclamation mark. Green introduced, this is an alchemical communicator that I made, based on an electronic product in the muggle world. After wearing it, we can transmit sound to other people's ears. This function can ignore distance and the obstruction of protective magic. Even all chemical products with anti-magic power such as the anti-thief waterfall are ineffective against it. While Green was talking, he put the all-chemical communicator, or all-chemical headset, in his right ear. Lin En and Irina put on the all-chemical headset in their hands with ease. Dumbledore, Newt and Sirius Black pondered over the all-chemical headset in their hands, but after failing, they followed Green's example and put it into their right ears. The next moment, Green's voice was directly transmitted to the ears of the other 5 people through the all-chemical headset, and the voices of the other 5 people were also heard by Green without any hindrance. After briefly introducing the function of the all-chemical headset, Green looked at Lin and asked, according to Dumbledore, Barty Crouch, who will participate in the election of the new Minister of Magic, is your subordinate, or your comrade in arms? Lin nodded and confirmed Green's statement. That's easy, Green said, taking out a dozen metal balls that were also the size of a little finger from his pocket. Give these to Barty Crouch, and let him hide them in various important roads of the Ministry of Magic to monitor the Ministry's actions. After handing these metal balls to Lin, Green took out something similar to a tablet, and handed it to Sirius Black. The screen on the tablet in Sirius's hand was divided into dozens of parts, and each part corresponded to the screen monitored by a metal ball in Lin's hand. Lin and Irina watched Green take out those all-chemical creations one by one, with their mouths twitching slightly. In-ear headphones, pinhole cameras, surveillance tablets. What other technological products can't you come up with? Exclamation mark. Irina finally understood how Lin felt when he received the arms sent by Green at Christmas. To be honest, if Lin didn't know that Green only went to a muggle university for further studies for a few years, and he himself was a pure-blood wizard from France, Lin would have suspected that his teacher was an undercover agent of the muggles who infiltrated the magic world. Those technological products are much better than those used by ordinary people who can't do magic. Green smiled and said, once Barty Crouch installs these all-chemical monitors in every corner of the Ministry of Magic, we will be able to monitor the real-time movements of the Ministry of Magic, including whether the auras are dispatched. In this way, even if the Ministry of Magic sends auras for support, we will be able to get the news in the first place, and make corresponding plans to deal with it. Sirius looked at the all-chemical tablet in his hand with shining eyes. When had he ever fought such a rich battle? Exclamation mark. Under Green's teaching, Sirius finally figured out how to use this all-chemical tablet. However, what puzzled Sirius was that among the dozens of boxes cut into pieces, only about 60% of the boxes had the pictures of the all-chemical monitors, while the remaining boxes were blank. Sirius asked this question immediately. In addition to the Ministry of Magic, Diagon Alley is also a place we need to monitor in a timely manner. Green explained, those auras are not all in the Ministry of Magic. Some auras who are on missions outside may go to investigate on their own. After learning about Gringotts, Sirius suddenly realized, and he continued, so, we have to monitor the entire Diagon Alley. Once there is a figure that shouldn't be there in Diagon Alley, I will give you feedback in time, right? Green nodded and said with a smile, yes, this is one of the main tasks you need to complete as a logistics staff. 1. Sirius asked, any other tasks? Green said, after entering the basement of Gringotts, I will install an all-chemical monitor at intervals to control the movements of goblins on the path. And you need to give us early warnings in real time, based on the movements of these goblins. Sirius nodded, which was considered an agreement. Green did not stop his actions. He took out a palm-sized metal pyramid and placed it on the table. This is the signal blocker I made. I can't be sure if there are alchemy masters among those goblins who are not inferior to me in alchemy level, nor can I be sure if they have the means to reversely track back to number 12 Grimmauld Place. And this signal blocker is the plan I made in advance. Green introduced to everyone. Lin and Irina immediately understood the use of this signal blocker. If those alchemy communicators on the market are connected to the public external network, then the alchemy headset made by Green himself is connected to the exclusive intranet. These alchemy creations that Green has granted permission will not be affected by the signal blocker. And if those goblins want to reversely monitor the location of the alchemy tablet in Sirius's hand through other alchemy methods, then this signal blocker will act as a firewall. to intercept the goblins' alchemy methods outside number 12 Grimmauld Place. Great. Dumbledore said happily, since the battle plan to rob Gringotts has been completed, let's act according to the plan. Dismiss. Just as several people were about to get up, Lin En raised his hand to stop them. Lin En said, wait, Professor Dumbledore. I think we have missed something very important. Dumbledore looked at Lin En with an inquiring look. Lin En spread his hands and said, when we robbed Gringotts, we must not miss the fact that we had a legitimate reason. Maybe we know that our goal is to obtain the Horcruxes of Gringotts, but the people don't know. They only think that we can take away their property accumulated for countless generations at any time. If we only send out a Demon King level wizard, then we may be able to put the blame on Voldemort. Anyway, Voldemort can't go to the Daily Prophet newspaper and plead that he is innocent. Just like a murderer can't go to the police station to explain that he didn't commit a robbery just because someone framed him for the robbery. Chapter 559. Standing on the moral high ground and pointing fingers. However, we dispatched 2 Demon King level wizards. There are only 3 Demon King level wizards in the British wizarding world, namely you, me and Voldemort. However, neither you nor I can cooperate with Voldemort. Therefore, when 2 Demon King level wizards appeared in Gringotts at the same time, our identities would certainly not be concealed. I don't care about the public's views, just as I never think that I'm a completely good person. But Professor Dumbledore is different. We should not let your reputation be damaged, nor should we let the bad reputation of robbing the public's property fall on you. Therefore, before robbing Gringotts, the first thing we have to do is to have a legitimate reason. Lin said so. Hearing Lin's words, everyone immediately understood what Lin meant. Dumbledore and Green looked at Lin with a sense of relief. So, Dumbledore smiled with relief and asked, what are you going to do? Lin chuckled and said, as I said before, the Daily Prophet is basically in my hands now. We just need to let the Daily Prophet publicize the fact that Voldemort's Horcruxes are hidden in Gringotts, and popularize to the public what Horcruxes are, the dangers of Horcruxes, and how we can kill Voldemort. Dumbledore frowned, and he said in a deep voice, popularize Horcruxes? In that case, I'm afraid that many wizards will kill innocent people, and make more Horcruxes for the so-called immortality. Before Lin could refute, Irina spoke softly, we just need to popularize the basic concepts of Horcruxes instead of teaching them how to make Horcruxes. It's like everyone knows the 3 unforgivable curses, but not everyone knows how to use them. Lin went on, what's more, after old Barty came to power, I think the number of dark wizards in the magic world will not be as many as before. After listening to Irina's words, Dumbledore's brows finally relaxed, but after hearing Lin's words, his brows furrowed again. I don't understand what you mean. Dumbledore said so. Lin chuckled and said, it's very simple. The first thing old Barty did after taking office was to increase the death penalty. We can never expect morality and conscience to restrain human beings. Only the fear of death will make some people who think they are unrestrained have to submit to the rules. Death penalty? Exclamation mark. Dumbledore was stunned at first, and then his brows relaxed. If the Ministry of Magic's law on the death penalty can be passed, it means that the death penalty does have its reason for existence, and Dumbledore has no need to interfere. What's more, for some extremely vicious dark wizards, letting them live in this world for one more minute is disrespectful to the victims. Lin went on to say, I will have the Daily Prophet spread the news that the Horcruxes are hidden in Gringotts. Of course, in order to prevent Voldemort and the Death Eaters from getting the information in advance and moving the Hufflepuff's gold cup away, the report on the Horcruxes will be published on the day of our action. In this way, even if the Daily Prophet falls into the hands of the Death Eaters, they will not have time to move the Hufflepuff's gold cup before we rob Gringotts. In addition, since we are attacking head-on, we can just pretend to ask the goblins for the Hufflepuff's gold cup, and then carry out the robbery after failing to get it. Even if this is just a pretense and meaningless hypocrisy, doing so will allow us to point fingers from the moral high ground. If the goblins protest, we can just say, we just want to destroy the Horcruxes, we have no intention of being enemies with Gringotts, and we have no intention of stealing people's property. In that way, we will be reasoning. Of course, it's only the reason on the wizarding side. As for the goblins, no one cares about them, right? Lin chuckled. Although it was indeed unnecessary to pretend to ask the goblin for Hufflepuff's gold cup, and the goblin had no chance of handing over the gold cup, everyone unanimously agreed with Lin's idea. After the meeting, everyone went to their respective duties. Lin took the anywhere door key and went to old Barty's office in the Ministry of Magic. He handed over the dozen or so small metal balls and an alchemical headset to old Barty and personally instructed him how to use them. After Green installed an alchemical signal blocker for number 12 Grimmauld Place, the two-sided mirror they used for communication lost its function. Only the alchemical headset, provided by Green, could allow old Barty to contact number 12 Grimmauld Place. On the other side, Irina got into her own small world in the suitcase and used the environmental transformation spell taught by Newt to open up an environment suitable for dragons to live in. In order to prevent the fire dragon's breath from accidentally destroying the magical plants planted by Irina in the small world in the box, she opened up a living area for the fire dragon at the edge of the small world. While Irina was opening up the living area for the fire dragon, Newt also made a special trip to France. Not all goblins in the magic world are in Gringotts, and not all goblins live under the sun. In the dark corners that many wizards can't see, there are many goblins who are unwilling to fail in the Goblin Rebellion and choose to go along with the dark wizards. They are not for any benefit, but just hope to be able to work with those dark wizards to cause damage in the magic world, to complete their so-called revenge. Those goblins who choose to work with dark wizards have no obvious identity, which means that, even if they disappear one day, no one will notice it. As for those dark wizards who cooperate with them, they will not take them seriously. Nearly 40% of the dark wizards in the magic world are pure-blooded wizards. They naturally look down on such dirty and vulgar goblins. If those goblins could not refine powerful alchemical equipment and bring them benefits, they would not choose to cooperate with these creatures of dirty blood. Even if those goblins disappeared or were killed, those dark wizards would only secretly say good thing they died. Therefore, when Newt came to the French magic world, a gathering place for dark wizards as famous as Lefebvre Valley, it took less than half a day to catch a goblin with a coma spell and a full body binding spell, and obtained a goblin biological sample from it, that is, a goblin finger, and put it into a petri dish prepared in advance. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 560, To Abandon Children. Newt's kindness saved the life of the captured goblin. After waking up, the captured goblin was surprised to find that he had not suffered any other injuries except for missing a finger. You know, after being attacked and unconscious, the goblin was ready to be killed, or to be put in a laboratory for research, or to be tortured in a prison. However, it was just missing a finger. In this magical world where drinking a sip of potion can regenerate a broken arm, losing a finger is really no different from scratching the skin. When the goblin felt that he had survived the disaster, Newt had already returned to number 12 Grimmauld Place with the portkey and handed the petri dish containing the goblin's biological samples to Green. After obtaining the goblin's biological samples, Green only took 3 days to refine 5 sets of goblin gloves. After the wizard puts on the goblin gloves, any alchemical creation will mistakenly judge him as a goblin when detecting this wizard, and the same is true for the vault door of Gringotts. However, the detection of goblins' identities by the vault door of Gringotts is only part of opening the door. Not every goblin in Gringotts can open the vault door. Those goblins who want to open the vault door also need to obtain permission from Gringotts. Otherwise, in the original book, Harry did not need to use the Imperious Curse to control the goblins of Gringotts to open the vault door. He could just let the goblin named Griffock open it. The only thing to be thankful for is that through the analysis of the images in Bellatrix's memory, Green was able to be sure that the permission granted by the vault door of Gringotts was not granted to the goblins themselves, but to a token carried by the goblins. That is, the secret key to open the vault door. Those goblins who have been authorized only need to wear the secret key on their bodies and then touch the vault door with their hands. The vault door can complete the double encryption detection and identification of the goblin genes and the alchemical secret key, and open to the authorized goblins. Therefore, just like dealing with the anti-thief waterfall, Green only needs to let Lin En manifest the alchemy array of the vault door, and he can reversely crack the so-called secret key in a short time, and then refine it on the semi-finished goblin gloves. Fortunately, the secret key to open the vault is not the goblins themselves, but the tokens on them. Otherwise my goblin gloves would be refined in vain, and I would have to take the souls of those damn goblins in the end. Green said so. Time soon came to the day before the Owl's exam for the 5th year wizards. During the dinner on this day, people from the Wizard Examination Administration had already arrived at Hogwarts Castle. When the dinner was about to end, Irina, Harry, Ron and Hermione saw Umbridge walking into the castle with several old-looking male and female wizards through the door of the auditorium. When facing the old professors of the Wizard Examination Administration, Umbridge seemed very nervous. These old professors of the Wizarding Examinations Authority never participated in politics, but their status in the Ministry of Magic was extremely high. Even Umbridge, the senior deputy minister of magic, was very respectful when facing these old professors. Among these old professors, there was a hunchbacked old witch with wrinkles all over her face, like a spider web. She was Professor Marchbank. Umbridge was talking to Professor Marchbank respectfully. Professor Marchbank seemed to be a little hard of hearing. She answered Umbridge's words in a loud voice, even though they were only a foot apart. However, facing Umbridge's excessive concern, or flattery, the old professor seemed very impatient. Have a nice trip. Have a nice trip. We have been here many times before. Professor Marchbank said impatiently. I said, I haven't heard from Dumbledore recently. As she spoke, she looked around in the hallway, as if expecting Dumbledore to suddenly appear from a broom closet. Professor Marchbank looked at Umbridge with a bit of mockery in her eyes. She was very dissatisfied with the guy who drove Dumbledore away, even though he was the senior undersecretary of the Ministry of Magic. Professor Marchbank asked contemptuously, why, you haven't figured out where he is yet? Not yet, Umbridge said viciously, but I swear that the Ministry of Magic will catch him soon. That's not necessarily true, Professor Marchbank said with a chuckle. If Dumbledore doesn't want to be found, then there's no hope. I should know. When he took the Newt exam that year, I personally tested his transfiguration and charms. The tricks he used his wand to do were something I had never seen before. Yes. Umbridge's smile froze on her face. She was embarrassed and immediately changed the subject. I'll take you to the staff lounge. You've worked hard all the way. You must want a cup of tea. There is a kind of craving for tea. That is, Umbridge thinks you want to drink tea. After watching Umbridge and Professor Marchbank and other people from the Wizarding Examinations Authority leave, Harry breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that Umbridge is not well liked by Professor Marchbank. Ron said thoughtfully. Irina said softly, Professor Marchbank is highly respected. She even served as the examiner of Professor Dumbledore's Newt exam that year. No matter how much Umbridge flatters and disguises herself, the old man can see through her true nature at a glance. Hermione scratched her hair angrily and said distressedly, I don't want to care about Professor Marchbank and Umbridge. I only know that our Owl's exam is tomorrow, and I still have so much knowledge that I haven't had time to review. Hearing Hermione's words, Harry and Ron's mouths twitched. They saw with their own eyes that Hermione reviewed every book that might be used for owls at least 3 times, and at the DA Army rally, she also specifically cast every spell that might be tested in the owl's exam dozens of times. If Hermione, a top student, hasn't finished reviewing yet, how can these poor students who haven't even opened their books cope? Exclamation mark. You might as well dig a hole and bury us. Ignoring the resentful looks of Harry and Ron, Hermione said to Irina eagerly, Irina, let's go back to the dormitory to review together. I want to review some knowledge points with you. Irina agreed happily, and the two besties returned to the dormitory hand in hand. Only the two big kids were left staring at each other, and they both read a touch of sadness in each other's eyes. Chapter 561, Kindness for Her Strength. Irina's Owl's exam went even smoother than she had imagined. On the first day of the written exam for charms, the first question was the first spell Irina had learned in the charms class after entering Hogwarts Castle, which was the levitation charm. Even the worst performing young wizard would not be able to answer this question, right? Exclamation mark. However, the last question of the written exam for charms surprised Irina. Write a spell that can knock down the Death Eaters and describe the movements of waving a wand. Perhaps because of the widespread spread of Voldemort's resurrection, the Wizard Examinations Authority actually took this into consideration when setting the questions, hoping that young wizards would master the methods to deal with the enemy. Of course, the score for this question was not high, which was also to prevent most young wizards from not being able to answer it, resulting in a general low score. In fact, the spell tested in this question is already within the scope of the Defense Against the Dark Arts class. Because the standard answer to this question is the disarming charm, and offensive spells such as the repulsive charm, taught in the charms class can also get corresponding points. Irina resisted the urge to write the Avada Kedavra curse, and obediently wrote down the spell of the disarming charm and the gesture of waving the wand. The first 2 days were charms and transfiguration, and the written exams of these 2 exams were naturally not difficult for Irina. In the practical exam in the afternoon, the examiners were even more impressed by Irina's silent and wandless spellcasting. After all, not all the examiners who came to take the test mastered the means of silent and wandless spellcasting. The third day was the herbology exam. Irina, who had an affinity with magical plants, undoubtedly won the exam with a perfect attitude. As for the Defense Against the Dark Arts class on the 4th day, even though Irina had never attended a class of Umbridge, her own knowledge reserve alone was enough for her to get full marks in the written exam. In the practical exam in the afternoon, Irina's examiner was Professor Marchbank. Professor Marchbank looked at Irina gently. She had heard about Irina's deeds. Even though she didn't know the details, it didn't affect her optimism towards the cute little witch in front of her. First, please demonstrate to me at least 5 offensive magics and at least 3 defensive magics. Professor Marchbank said to Irina in a soft tone. Not far away, Umbridge, who was standing outside the hallway, looked at this place coldly. She could probably guess that the person who attacked her every weekend was probably the little witch who was taking the exam. But she had no evidence, so she could only curse Irina in secret. Irina nodded slightly to Professor Marchbank. She looked at an alchemical dummy not far away from her. This was the object of her spell in this Defense Against the Dark Arts practical exam. Irina flicked her left hand, and a red light broke through the air and knocked the alchemical dummy back several meters. It was a silent and wandless disarming spell. Then, Irina flicked her fingers continuously, and 4 beams of light of different colors flew out in succession. The first one that flew out was an ice blow light, which was Irina's freezing spell. The second one that flew out was a purple light, which was Irina's coma spell. The third one that flew out was a grey-white light, which was Irina's crushing spell. And the last one was a familiar orange-red light. This explosion spell bombarded the alchemical dummy, completely blowing it into pieces. Perfect silent and wandless casting. I'm afraid even I can't do this. Professor Marchbank sighed and looked at the alchemical dummy that exploded into pieces, saying so. Among these examiners, Professor Marchbank is considered to be one of the stronger magicians, and she also masters a lot of silent and wandless magic. But she has never been able to perform it so smoothly and coherently to smash the enemy. Professor Marchbank has not experienced countless battles like Irina. She is a thorough scholar, and her improvement in magic mostly comes from her study of magic. After performing these 5 offensive magics, Irina began to demonstrate defensive magic. Unlike offensive magic that uses an alchemical dummy as a target and can measure its power by the degree of damage to the dummy, defensive magic leaves almost no trace. In order to let Professor Marchbank know what magic she was casting, Irina waved her wand and whispered, "Armor protection. Protect everyone. Stay safe." 3 consecutive defensive magics were cast on her and her surroundings. Professor Marchbank's vision of Irina seemed to be distorted by some inexplicable force, which made her unable to see clearly. "Next, please show me how you would save your life if you were attacked by a Death Eater. You can treat that alchemical dummy as a Death Eater," Professor Marchbank said softly, pointing to a new alchemical dummy that was moved not far away. Irina blinked and smiled. "If it's a real fight, I might choose to use illegal black magic including Avada Kedavra, just to kill the Death Eaters. But if it's an exam, As Irina finished speaking, the ice crystal spear suddenly appeared in her hand. Irina threw the ice crystal spear casually, and the next moment, the head of the new alchemical dummy exploded like snowflakes again. Professor Marchbank seemed stunned. The question she asked was how Irina could save her life from the Death Eaters, but she didn't expect that the answer Irina gave was how to kill the Death Eaters. This seemed a bit off topic, but there seemed to be nothing wrong with it. Just as Professor Marchbank was entangled, Irina smiled and said, "Of course, this is when I can fight back. If I can only save my life, then I will do this." As Irina spoke, she tapped her head with her wand. Her figure disappeared from the spot under the effect of the disillusionment spell. Seeing this, Professor Marchbank's eyes lit up, and she nodded and said, "Great silent disillusionment spell. Okay, let's undo the spell." After Irina's figure appeared in front of Professor Marchbank again, Professor Marchbank leaned slightly and asked, "Lowell, I heard that you can conjure a patronus?" As a bonus, the patronus charm was not so strange in the eyes of these examiners, and the reason why Professor Marchbank was willing to give Irina extra points for a patronus charm was because the patronus charm was basically a synonym for a good person. As we all know, dark wizards cannot conjure a patronus, and they will be backfired by those happy emotions, of course, except for Umbridge, who takes pleasure in torturing people and has a perverted and twisted heart. Therefore, if Irina has such a high level of magic and can conjure a patronus, then Professor Marchbank is willing to give her extra points for Irina's strength and kindness. Chapter 562, Execution of Umbridge. Irina waved her wand without hesitation, and a small and cute silver fox jumped out from the top of her wand. It jumped twice with joy, and then rolled over in front of Professor Marchbank. "Great," Professor Marchbank said in surprise. "Well, put away your patronus, Lowell, you can go." After the defense against the dark arts exam, Irina was free for the next 3 days. Irina only signed up for the optional course Care of Magical Creatures, so the only exams she had to take were potions on Monday of the second week, Care of Magical Creatures on Tuesday, Astronomy on Wednesday, and History of Magic on Thursday. During these 3 days, Irina improved the living area she prepared for the dragon, ensuring that the dragon would feel at home after entering her suitcase. Green, on the other hand, created several blank templates for the semi-finished goblin gloves. As long as he could reversely deduce the alchemical array of the secret key, he could immediately refine it on the template, and then integrate the templates into the 5 sets of goblin gloves one by one. In addition, Lin also distributed the alchemical headphones he refined on behalf of Green to 5 wizards who might be involved in this incident, including old Barty Crouch of the Ministry of Magic and another Ministry of Magic employee loyal to the Rowell family. They will use the alchemical headphones to report the movements in the Ministry of Magic to Sirius in real time. The operator of the Rowell family's family business in Diagon Alley, that is, the owner of a potion store and a beverage store, they will tell Sirius the important things that happened in Diagon Alley, and then let Sirius judge the seriousness of the matter. There is also a wizard who wanders in the Hall of Gringotts, pretending to be bribed by the Rowell family to withdraw money, and he will report what happened in the Hall of Gringotts to Sirius. Under the simultaneous monitoring of these 5 temporary intelligence personnel and dozens of small metal balls, Sirius, as a logistics personnel, was able to grasp all the intelligence to the greatest extent and formulate corresponding countermeasures. The second week of the Owl's exam week soon arrived. Irina also successfully completed the exams for potions and Care of Magical Creatures. On Wednesday morning, after taking the theoretical exam in astronomy, Irina manually modified the DA Army's assembly time. Today at 2 p.m, room of requirement. The appearance of the assembly time surprised all the young wizards of the DA Army. This was not only because there was no sign of this assembly, nor was there any advance notice, but the assembly notice was issued less than 3 hours before the assembly began. Or because this was the Owl's exam week, when everyone was working hard to review, and it was still daytime. This was the first time that the DA Army had an assembly in the daytime. Assembly in 2 hours? Is this quill broken? Hermione looked at the words displayed by the alchemical quill in her hand in disbelief, and she looked at Irina beside her. Irina said softly, "The alchemical quill will not break. This is the time that Lin and I set together. According to the trajectory in the original book, Umbridge will bring the Aurors to arrest Hagrid tonight. And Lin has scheduled the result of impeaching Fudge for tomorrow, so isn't tonight the best time to execute Umbridge? Exclamation mark. Although Hermione was still a little confused, she didn't ask much, but followed the other little wizards of the DA army, and arrived at the room of requirement before 2 o'clock. It was time to execute Umbridge in the evening, so when the DA army's gathering began this time, Lin and Irina did not specifically attack Umbridge, but cast a powerful confusion charm on the corridor on the 8th floor of the entire castle. This is a confusion charm that even Professor McGonagall would become dizzy when she came here. At this time, in the room of requirement, most of the little wizards of the DA army arrived here on time and found a cushion to sit on. There was still a small number of young wizards who had not arrived. They were the 5th year young wizards who were taking the Owls exam in the divination class this afternoon. Harry and Ron were among them. Even though they were extremely eager to attend this gathering, they couldn't just skip the Owls exam, could they? Exclamation mark. Perhaps everyone is curious why I asked everyone to come here at this time to attend this impromptu DA army gathering. Lin walked in front of the crowd and said so to everyone. Obviously, what Lin said was indeed the question in the minds of these young wizards. They all looked at Lin and waited for Lin's answer. After Lin kept them in suspense, he continued, "My family's intelligence network told me that Umbridge issued an order a few hours ago to send 5 Aurors to Hogwarts to carry out the task of capturing the half-blood giant Rubeus Hagrid. You should understand what this means, right?" Hearing Lin's words, 2/3 of the young wizards of the DA army present exclaimed. They were all young wizards who had a good relationship with Hagrid. Hermione even stood up and said in disbelief, "Why would Umbridge do that? We can't let Hagrid be captured." They all started to discuss, and many young wizards said that they must not let Umbridge's plan succeed, nor let Hagrid, the kind and amiable professor, be captured. Lin pressed his hands down, signaling everyone to be quiet. Then, Lin said softly, "At the same time, I got the news that the case of impeachment of Fudge proposed by the Wizengamot members will be decided tomorrow morning, and according to Fudge's current approval rating, Fudge's resignation tomorrow can be said to be a foregone conclusion. I think you should also know what this means, right?" Hearing this, everyone quieted down. After a long while, Ginny Weasley stood up. Her tone was a little hesitant. "Does it mean we can kill Umbridge?" Ginny used the word kill very well. The little wizards around looked at her in surprise. They didn't expect Ginny to say kill Umbridge directly. Hermione said, "This means that, even if we resist Umbridge and drive Umbridge out of Hogwarts Castle, the Ministry of Magic will no longer provide assistance to Umbridge. Umbridge will be completely isolated and helpless. No matter who the new Minister of Magic is, it is impossible to keep Umbridge, a guy who is hated by heaven and people, and add to the trouble." Lin nodded with a smile, and he said, "That's right, and what we are going to do tonight is to execute Umbridge." Chapter 563, A Just Cause. Hearing Lin En's words, everyone was refreshed. You know, among the people in the DA army, nearly 60% of the little wizards have suffered from Umbridge's black magic quill pen, and their hands have more or less left scars of black magic. Umbridge's dictatorial rule in Hogwarts Castle made these little wizards want to cut her into pieces, and now, Lin En will lead them to punish the pink toad. How can they not be happy? Exclamation mark. However, the 5th year partners cannot participate in this. You still need to take the Owl's astronomy practical test tonight. Lin En continued. As Lin En's voice fell, wailing sounded one after another, and those wailing sounds all came from the 5th year little wizards present. Irina said softly, "Don't forget, everyone, our exam is on the top of the astronomy tower. If you can finish answering the questions within the specified time, you may be able to watch the whole process of Lin and the others executing Umbridge." After hearing Irina's words, the 5th year wizards quieted down. Yes, even if they couldn't personally participate in the execution of Umbridge, it seemed like a good choice to witness this scene. What's more, even Irina herself couldn't participate in this action. She was also a 5th year wizard. Thinking of this, these 5th year wizards finally accepted the result and said that they would definitely finish answering the questions in advance and witness the moment when Umbridge was executed. Afterwards, Irina took the 5th year wizards out of the room of requirement and returned to their respective public rooms to review the knowledge points of astronomy in the evening. Lin En discussed the specific battle plan for executing Umbridge at night with the little wizards in the 6th and 7th grades, as well as some little wizards in the 3rd and 4th grades whose magic level was comparable to that of adult wizards. At 11 o'clock in the evening, all the little wizards in the 5th grade came to the top of the astronomy tower. This was an ideal night for observing celestial bodies, with no clouds and no wind. At this time, the astronomy tower was bathed in silver moonlight, and there was a slight chill in the air. Everyone set up their telescopes, and after Professor Marchbank gave the order to start the exam, they began to fill in the blank star charts given to them. Professor Marchbank and another professor named Tofty walked back and forth among them, looking at the precise positions of the stars and planets they observed. "Help me, Ziwei Hanxing." Irina, who was sitting in the corner of the examination room, glanced at the two professors, and after finding that the two did not notice her side, she said softly. As her voice fell, a purple gold star-shaped snowflake appeared in her palm. The moment Ziwei Hanxing appeared, a faint star power lingered around her, allowing her to better perceive the situation of the starry sky. With the help of the star power, even without the help of the astronomical telescope, Irina could easily see and understand the starry sky. Soon, the feather pen in her hand began to move, filling in the star map in her hand as quickly as possible. The astronomical tower was silent, with only the friction of parchment, the occasional creaking of the telescope on the shelf, and the rustling of many feather pens writing. An hour passed, and the lights in the castle windows went out one by one, and the orange-yellow lights reflected on the field gradually disappeared. Just as Irina finished filling in the star map in her hand and put down the feather pen, the castle gate suddenly opened. The moment the gate was opened, the movements of all the A army members were stagnant. After learning that they would witness Umbridge's execution tonight, they filled in the star charts very quickly. Among the members of the DA army, the slowest one had completed 90% of the star charts. They all stopped what they were doing and looked towards the castle gate. 6 elongated shadows moved on the illuminated grass, and then the door closed, and the grass became dark again. From the 6 figures, Irina identified Umbridge and Aura Lux who she had seen in the principal's office that day. In addition, there were 4 other auras following behind Umbridge. Suddenly, Irina's eyes narrowed. She found that not far behind Umbridge and the 5 auras, the grass was shaking irregularly, as if many people had drilled through the grass. If she guessed correctly, those who had drilled through the grass were probably Lin and the DA army's companions, and the way they concealed their tracks might be the disillusionment charm. Umbridge and the 5 auras were not very good at magic, and there was not even an elite aura among the 5 auras. Therefore, even if Lin did not specifically cover up her tracks and acted only with the disillusionment charm, the 6 people did not notice anything wrong. At this time, on the grass, "Lin, are we not going to act yet?" a little wizard who was invisible asked quietly, holding his wand tightly, as if he would attack Umbridge at any time. Lin lowered his voice and said, "No, as students, if you want to attack a professor or an official of the Ministry of Magic, the first thing you need to do is to have a legitimate reason. Therefore, we must wait for her to attack Hagrid, attack a professor who teaches at Hogwarts Castle, and confirm her crime of illegally attacking the professor. In this way, even if we attack her, we can be considered as acting bravely to protect the professor." Lin said so. Lin's resources include the Ministry of Magic and the Daily Prophet. As long as Umbridge attacked Hagrid, no matter how they hurt Umbridge later, old Barty could help them suppress the matter, identify their illegal attack on the Ministry of Magic officials as being brave and righteous, and stop Umbridge's illegal behavior in time. As for the Daily Prophet, with the evidence provided by old Barty, the Daily Prophet would naturally be able to suppress the direction of public opinion. In this way, these little wizards who participated in this action would not be implicated or in any trouble, but would be praised and become kind wizards who were brave and righteous in people's mouths. After Lin decided to control public opinion, everything he did had the standard of having a legitimate reason. As long as he had a legitimate reason, no matter what he did, whether it was good or bad, the forces behind him could clean up for him, making him always a savior in the eyes of wizards in the British magic world. And this is of great benefit to them leading wizards to defeat Voldemort, as well as the more distant future. Chapter 564. Let's do it. Revenge if there is revenge, and complain if there is complaint. Under the gaze of Lin and others, Umbridge led the 5 auras to the outside of Hagrid's hut. Dawlish raised his wand and cast an explosive spell, blowing open the wooden door of the hut. Umbridge immediately rushed in with the 5 auras. Stupid. 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 The 6 people waved their wands at the same time and cast a coma spell on Hagrid. However, their magic level was not high. Among the 5 auras, except for Dawlish's coma spell, which was slightly more powerful and could make Hagrid's body shake slightly, the coma spells of the other 4 people could not even break Hagrid's defense. Damn half-blood giant. Seeing that Hagrid was almost unaffected, several people cursed inwardly. Although Hagrid didn't know why these people attacked him, after feeling the pain from his body, he roared and swung his fist at the aura closest to him. A figure flew out from the door. It was the aura who was hit on the head by Hagrid's punch. The punch actually sent the aura flying 4 or 5 feet back. The aura stood up shakily, his face visibly swollen. Looking at his colleague who had been thrown out, Dawlish shouted, "Be reasonable, Hagrid." Hagrid crossed his hands across his chest, blocking 2 disarming spells, and then shouted, "Go to hell with your reason. You can't take me away like this, Dawlish." At the same time, on the astronomy tower, all the little wizards of the DAME looked at Hagrid's hut. They saw the small figure of Fang. In order to protect Hagrid, it pounced on the auras around Hagrid again and again, and was finally hit by a stunning spell, and fell to the ground. Seeing Fang being knocked unconscious, Hagrid got angry. He had never lost his temper so much before. He roared and picked up the aura who had knocked Fang down from the ground, and threw him out. Oh my god. This is an exam. Seeing that everyone was distracted, Professor Tofty said anxiously, "Please note that there are only 16 minutes left before the end of the exam." However, none of the young wizards of the DA army cared about Professor Tofty's words. They all watched everything that happened in Hagrid's hut intently. The star charts in their hands have been almost filled out. Even if there are only 5 minutes left, it is more than enough for them. What's more, in order to witness the execution of Umbridge, they would rather not have the remaining 10 minutes. On the grass. "Lin, can we start?" Ginny Weasley asked in a low voice, her voice coming from behind Lin's right. Almost. Lin nodded slightly. "Get ready." Just as Lin was about to give the order to start, the door of the castle was opened again. A figure ran out of the castle quickly, crossed the grass, passed by Lin and more than 30 DAME members, and ran towards Hagrid's hut. "It's Professor McGonagall." Luna Lovegood's ethereal voice came from behind Lin's left, with a hint of surprise in her tone. The appearance of Professor McGonagall made those little wizards who were ready to make a move hold back their actions again. It must be said that Professor McGonagall's deterrent power over them was much greater than that of others. Soon, Professor McGonagall came to Hagrid's hut. She looked very angry and trembling with anger. "Let him go. I say, let him go." Professor McGonagall's sharp voice came out, as if it cut through the entire night sky. Even the people on the astronomy tower could hear it clearly. "What reason do you have to attack him? He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. He didn't deserve this." Before Professor McGonagall could finish her words, Umbridge in Hagrid's hut looked at her coldly and ordered, "Knock her out." As Umbridge's voice fell, except for the aura who was thrown out by Hagrid before, who was still a little dazed and didn't have time to do anything, the other 4 auras all raised their wands and cast a stunning spell at Professor McGonagall. Professor McGonagall's physique can't be compared with Hagrid's. She is already very old and can't withstand this sudden stunning spell at all. 4 stunning spells hit Professor McGonagall at the same time. The moment she was cursed, she seemed to have turned into a luminous body, and her whole body was emitting a strange light. Then, her feet left the ground, and she fell heavily on her back, no longer moving. Seeing this scene, everyone in the astronomy tower cried out in surprise. Even Professor Tofty had no time to care about the exam in front of him. He shouted in horror, running gargoyles. "This warning is too much. What a shameless act." On the grass, after seeing Professor McGonagall, whom they respected so much, being knocked unconscious, almost all the young wizards of the DA army were furious. Although Professor McGonagall was very strict on weekdays, whether in class or in the assignments, she was really good to them. Her feelings for them were as kind as those of an elder to the younger generation. if it weren't for the discipline of the DA army that allowed them to control their desire to attack. Otherwise, at this moment, there would probably be more than 30 sharp swords flying towards Umbridge. Give the order quickly, Lin. Irving roared. Even he couldn't help but want to take action. At this time, Lin En laughed in anger. He sneered and said, assaulting the deputy headmaster of Hogwarts is a crime. That is not too much, even if she is killed. Members of the DA army, take action. Revenge if there is revenge, and grievance if there is grievance. As Lin En's voice fell, 39 figures suddenly appeared on the grass that seemed to be empty. Fall to the ground. Expelliarmus. Tear into pieces. Smash to pieces. These 39 little wizards of the DA army were all full of anger and shouted their own spells at Umbridge and the 5 Aurors in Hagrid's hut. Seeing the 39 people who suddenly appeared on the grass, Umbridge and the 5 Aurors' faces changed all of a sudden. Damn it. Are you going to rebel? Don't forget, I'm Dumbledore's Umbridge, the senior deputy minister of the Ministry of Magic and the headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Umbridge roared desperately, waving her wand to cast an armor spell. Armor to protect yourself. Armor to protect yourself. Protect everyone. Dawlish and the other 5 Aurors also reacted. They gave up attacking Hagrid and turned to set up defensive magic towards the door. Dawlish saw the wizard robes of the DA members. The college badges on those wizard robes proved their identity as students. He looked at Umbridge in disbelief. Miss Umbridge, what on earth did you do to make so many students unite to attack us? Chapter 565. A true man never looks back at the explosion. Umbridge also had an expression of disbelief on her face. She couldn't imagine why those cowardly students dared to attack her today. Moreover, judging from the power of those spells, they even wanted to kill her. Under the bombardment of more than 30 spells, the defensive spells arranged by Umbridge and others were as thin as paper. In an instant, they were torn open by the bombardment of spells. An orange-red explosion spell flew in through the hole and exploded in front of Umbridge. The violent shock wave threw Umbridge out and hit the load-bearing column of Hagrid's hut hard. A touch of bright red blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Why are you here? Hagrid saw the DA army suddenly appearing outside his house, and a look of astonishment appeared on his face. Hagrid, don't worry about it for now, Ginny said loudly, and cast a crushing spell in the direction of Dawlish. Get behind us. As Ginny spoke, she resisted several spells from the Aurors, and dragged Hagrid and the Fainted Fang to the back of the DA army. After bringing Hagrid and the Fainted Fang to a safe area, Ginny smiled apologetically at Hagrid. Sorry, Hagrid, your house may need to be rebuilt. As she spoke, Ginny nodded in the direction of Hagrid's hut. Hagrid's hut had become precarious under the bombardment of spells like a storm. Not to mention that there were many explosive spells mixed in these spells. Seeing this scene, Hagrid had already accepted the fact that his house was going to become a ruin. He said helplessly, it's not difficult for me to build a house, but you attacked Umbridge. Is it really okay? Ginny gritted her teeth and said, what does it matter? Fudge will step down tomorrow. No more talking, Hagrid, I'm going to join the battle. Smash to pieces. As Ginny said this, she ran forward and raised her wand to cast a crushing spell in the direction of Dawlish. Dawlish struggled to support his armor spell, but the attacking spells were too many and too fierce. Under the bombardment of those spells, the invisible shield protecting him was finally broken. And at this moment, Ginny's crushing spell arrived. The grey-white light hit Dawlish's right arm fiercely, shattering his arm and the wand in his hand, and sawdust and blood foam flew all over the sky. Ah! Dawlish, who lost an arm, wailed in pain. He fell to the ground. Before he could make any move, another stunning spell flew over and knocked him out completely. After Dawlish lost his fighting power, this line of defense also completely collapsed. Countless spells shattered the defensive spells that blocked outside Hagrid's hut and bombarded these Aurors. The remaining 4 Aurors all lost their hands and feet and fell into a coma. Lin and the DA army did not care about these Aurors, but pressed forward in the direction of Umbridge. Under the healing magic of the magic world, as long as these Aurors did not die, their injuries could be healed. After all, these magics that made them lose their hands and feet were not black magic, and would not prevent those healing magics from regenerating their broken arms. Therefore, compared with those Aurors, they hoped to execute Umbridge more. Umbridge, your death has come. Lin sneered as he walked into the dilapidated Hagrid's hut. He looked down at Umbridge, who was sitting on the ground, with a cold face. Umbridge looked at the 39 people in front of her, and she shouted desperately, "I'm the Senior Deputy Minister of Magic and the Headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. You damned little beasts, aren't you afraid of being locked up in Azkaban prison for the rest of your lives?" Stubborn. Irving, who was walking beside Lin, said disdainfully, "Your Minister Fudge will step down tomorrow. Who do you think will make decisions for you?" Hearing Irving's words, Umbridge's face showed fear. She was clear about what happened outside Hogwarts Castle, so she believed that Fudge would step down tomorrow, but she still held on to her last hope. Fudge steps down. Wait, there's also a new Minister of Magic. He can't just let you attack me without trying you. PFFT. Irving sneered after hearing Umbridge's words. "Damn pink toad, you may not know that the Minister of Magic who is about to be elected is the beast you call him, a member of Dumbledore's army." Just when Irving was about to say something, Lin raised his hand to stop him. Lin looked at Umbridge in front of her carelessly and waved the wand in her hand gently. Okay, it is said that the dead are the greatest, so before you die, I should return your memory to you. After all, I'm a kind person, and I will not let you be a confused ghost who does not understand even death." As Lin's voice fell, all the memories of Umbridge that Lin had blocked with the forgetfulness spell in this school year appeared in Umbridge's mind one by one. After receiving the memories, Umbridge's face turned pale. She raised her hand and pointed at Lin, and her voice became trembling. "It turned out to be you. It turned out to be you all the time. Even the person who attacked me that time was you, and you even found a dark wizard to take the blame. What exactly do you want to do? You have planned so much, and planned for so long. What is your purpose? Do you really want to overthrow the Ministry of Magic?" Umbridge pointed at Lin with her right hand, and she said hoarsely. Lin's expression turned cold. He looked at Umbridge with disgust. As he waved his wand, a silent cutting spell flew out, cutting off Umbridge's wrist. That day, she used this hand to grab Irina. Disgusting thing. Come on, everyone. Cast a disarming spell each. Don't kill her. There are people waiting behind. Fair chance. Ignoring Umbridge's screams, Lin turned around and whispered to the DA army. As Lin's voice fell, all the members of the DA army showed excitement. They lined up in an orderly manner and took turns to come to Umbridge. Disarm you. Disarm you. Disarm you. After 38 disarming spells, Umbridge had become almost breathless, and she fell to the ground like a puddle of mud. Okay, everyone, it's time for us to go back, and it's time for her to leave. After everyone cast a spell on Umbridge in turn, Lin clapped his hands and signaled everyone to leave. Everyone obediently left Hagrid's hut and headed towards the direction of Hogwarts Castle, while Lin walked behind everyone. After Lin walked out of Hagrid's hut 50 meters away, he slightly turned sideways and looked at the wooden house that could collapse at any time with the corner of his eye. He flicked his finger. Thunder explosion. A sound so light that only he could hear it sounded, and a ray of orange-red light flew towards the hut. In an instant, the hut and Umbridge in it were completely submerged in the flames. At this time, Lin had already entered the castle with other members of the DA army and did not care about the explosion behind him. A real man never looks back at the explosion. Chapter 566. The Sins of Fudge and Umbridge. The explosion completely destroyed Hagrid's hut, which was already on the verge of collapse. The fierce flames illuminated the entire night sky red. On the astronomy tower, everyone stared blankly at the flames that engulfed everything, without any action. The fire lasted for a whole night, before it extinguished itself, after burning all the combustibles. Under the violent explosion and the burning of the flames, the damned pink toad finally received her due retribution, and died without a trace of her body. The 5 Aurors woke up slowly on the edge of the ruins in the morning. Lin was still kind. At least he did not let these Aurors be buried with Umbridge, but used the zombie floating spell to move them out of the explosion range. Although the nature of this magic battle was very bad and even resulted in a loss of life, it was obviously not enough to interrupt the owl's exams of the 5th year wizards. Irina and others' last exam, the History of Magic exam, would be held at 2 o'clock in the afternoon of this day, so they could rest this morning. Many people, including Irina, chose to sleep comfortably, while top students like Hermione, as well as some poor students who were worried that they would not pass the exam, chose to get up early in the morning to review their lessons. The professors from the Wizarding Examinations Authority did not immediately send the 5 Aurors outside the ruins to St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries, but instead sent the injured Professor McGonagall to St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries. The Aurors' attack on Professor McGonagall made these professors, who were also in the education system, very dissatisfied. It was not until more than 10 o'clock in the morning that day, when the Aurors woke up, that Professor Marchbank and Professor Tofty sent the 5 Aurors, who were still panicked and confused, to St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries. Since Hogwarts Castle was under the control of Umbridge these days, almost all external communication channels were blocked. Therefore, even if Umbridge's death and the serious injuries of the 5 Aurors were not spread, people outside did not have the slightest doubt. The Ministry of Magic did not even know what happened in Hagrid's hut last night. After all, Umbridge herself ordered the 5 Aurors to come to Hogwarts, and she had not told anyone about it. Meanwhile, in the Ministry of Magic, Courtroom 10, which was once used to try the savior Harry Potter, has now become the place where Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic, is tried. According to the votes of the Wizengamot members and the Ministry of Magic staff, the case of impeachment of Cornelius Fudge has been officially passed. From today, Cornelius Fudge is no longer the Minister of Magic. Opposite Fudge, Amelia Susan Bones, the Director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, announced loudly. As Ms. Bones finished her words, Fudge's face suddenly turned pale. Impossible, impossible, I can't leave the position of Minister of Magic. The Ministry of Magic needs me, the people need me, and the British wizarding world needs me. Fudge murmured in a low voice, shaking his head frantically, unwilling to accept this fact. However, no matter how much Fudge protested, the members of the Wizengamot sitting opposite him, and the high-ranking officials of the Ministry of Magic all looked at him with indifference, and no one was moved by him. As early as the moment Dumbledore initiated the impeachment of Fudge, Fudge had been deserted by everyone. The reason why he still had so many followers and so many people were willing to serve him was only because those people valued the benefits that Fudge could bring to them, and that they could get more money from the positions that Fudge arranged for them. In addition to these people, the rest were some Death Eaters who had sneaked into the Ministry of Magic. The only person among the high-ranking officials of the Ministry of Magic who was willing to be loyal to Fudge was Dolores Umbridge, who was killed by Lin last night. No one needs you, Cornelius Fudge. Old Barty Crouch slowly stood up from his seat, looking at Fudge with a sinister look, and said in a deep voice. Hearing what Barty said, Fudge's movements froze, and then he started to yell wildly. So what? Hogwarts is still developing according to my will. Without me, the development of Hogwarts will stop, and those little wizards will lose their future. Before Fudge finished speaking, Barty stopped him. Shut up, Fudge. I think even if you step down, you probably won't be able to leave the Ministry of Magic safely. Ms. Bones, I want to file a complaint against Cornelius Fudge and Dolores Umbridge. This is the evidence I collected. Please take a look. Barty said loudly, and he handed a long roll of parchment to Ms. Bones. Hearing what Barty said, Ms. Bones frowned, and she took the parchment. Her eyes swept over the parchment, and soon, her brows furrowed deeply. Ms. Bones loudly read out the accusation on the parchment. According to the evidence given by Mr. Crouch, Cornelius Fudge's crimes include illegal sale of Ministry of Magic positions, collusion with dark wizards, embezzlement of Ministry of Magic property, etc. Dolores Umbridge's crimes include collusion with Death Eaters, illegal use of dark magic, attacking Hogwarts professors, illegally sending Dementors to attack underage wizards, using dark magic on underage wizards, etc. When Ms. Bones listed the crimes of Fudge and Umbridge one by one, the entire 10th courtroom fell silent. Fudge's crimes were easy to explain, nothing more than the things done by corrupt officials and transactions with dark wizards. These things have been done by many wizards from pure-blood families in the Ministry of Magic. But the crimes committed by Umbridge are incredible. Whether it is attacking Hogwarts professors, or using dark magic on underage wizards, those are things that only vicious dark wizards would do. What they found most unbelievable was the charge that Umbridge illegally sent Dementors to attack underage wizards. If this charge was proven, then even imprisoning Umbridge in Azkaban for life would be more than enough. At this moment, Ms. Bones raised her head and looked at old Barty with her sharp eagle-like eyes. She asked, "Mr. Crouch, I have read the charges and the corresponding evidence you listed. The evidence you provided can basically confirm the crimes committed by Cornelius Fudge and Dolores Umbridge, but the only thing missing is the evidence of Dolores Umbridge's attack on Hogwarts professors, her use of dark magic on underage wizards, and her illegal dispatch of Dementors to attack underage wizards." Ms. Bones adjusted her glasses and said, "So, if you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 567. Please send the criminal Fudge to Azkaban. "Of course I have evidence." Old Barty chuckled, and he took out a bottle with silver threads. "Do you need me to show you with magic projection?" The bottle in old Barty's hand was Lin's cloud synchronization memory bottle. During the execution of Umbridge last night, although Lin returned Umbridge's forgotten memories to her, how could he let Umbridge get her memories so easily? Exclamation mark. While unlocking Umbridge's memories, Lin also cast a powerful silent legilimency on Umbridge. From her memories, she saw the scene of her ordering the Dementors to attack Lin, Irina and Harry, and the scene of her forcing dozens of students in Hogwarts Castle to write with black magic quills. However, at that time, Umbridge was receiving her forgotten memories and did not realize that she had been hit by Lin's legilimency without knowing it. After returning to Hogwarts Castle, Lin immediately extracted the relevant memories and put them into the cloud synchronization memory bottle. Correspondingly, Barty Crouch, who also held a cloud synchronization memory bottle, also obtained this evidence, which provided great help for his attack today. Seeing the bottle containing the silver thread, Ms. Bones hesitated for a moment and nodded. Now in the 10th courtroom, except for the members of the Wizengamot, there are all high-level officials of the Ministry of Magic. They have the right to observe all trials and participate in the vote. Therefore, even if the impeachment of Fudge in the 10th courtroom is directly changed to the trial of Fudge and Umbridge, there is no problem. So, Barty waved his wand and constructed a magic screen in front of all the Wizengamot members, and the cloud synchronization memory bottle was opened, and the silver thread in it floated out and sank into the magic screen. After a few breaths of time, the scene in Umbridge's memory appeared on this magic screen. The first thing that appeared was Umbridge in her defense against the dark arts professor's office, forcing little wizards to write with her dark magic quill. She looked at the scars on the backs of the little wizards' hands and showed a perverted smile. After seeing this scene, all the members of the Wizengamot whispered to each other, and disgust flashed in their eyes from time to time. Then, the background of the magic screen changed to the island, where Azkaban prison was located. Umbridge, as the senior deputy minister of the Ministry of Magic, issued an order for the Dementors to collectively leave the island, where Azkaban prison was located, and attack Lin, Irina and Harry, 3 underage little wizards. After watching this scene, everyone was in an uproar. Ms. Bones' lips trembled, and she said in a harsh voice, "This is murder. Naked murder. Dolores Umbridge is undoubtedly a cruel, evil, and cruel dark wizard. She even dared to cry thief, and wanted to judge the innocent Harry Potter." More people cast their suspicious eyes on Fudge. As Umbridge's only superior and the object of Umbridge's loyalty, they had no reason not to suspect that the reason Umbridge ordered the Dementors to attack underage wizards was because of the instruction of Fudge, the then Minister of Magic. But in fact, after seeing the scene of Umbridge ordering the Dementors to attack Lin, Irina and Harry, Fudge was also stunned. He was completely unaware of this matter, and when Umbridge told him that Harry cast the Patronus charm in the Muggle world, he really thought that Harry had broken the law. But Fudge never expected that Umbridge, a guy with thick eyebrows and big eyes, would deceive himself and use him as a gun. Fudge wanted to argue for himself, but when he saw the undisguised suspicion of those members of the Wizengamot, he felt that he could not clear himself, even if he jumped into the Yellow River. It is impossible to argue. Maybe this is what Fudge is talking about now. Soon, a new picture appeared on the magic screen, but surprisingly, this time the picture was not from Umbridge's perspective, but from the perspective of a bystander, watching Umbridge and the Aurors illegally break into Hagrid's hut and attack Hagrid, a professor at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Then, Umbridge ordered the 5 Aurors to use a stunning spell on Professor McGonagall, who came to stop them, and beat the respected professor into St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries. After seeing Professor McGonagall fall unconscious under the spell in the picture given by the magic screen, many members of the Wizengamot could not sit still, and they stood up angrily. You know, many of these high-ranking members of the Wizengamot were once students of Professor McGonagall. Seeing their professor suffer this despicable, shameless, and outrageous attack, how could they sit back and do nothing? Exclamation mark. Damn Umbridge. This is a naked crime, this is a naked murder. A member of the Wizengamot shouted loudly. After seeing the scene of Umbridge and the Aurors attacking Hagrid and Professor McGonagall, Fudge, who was sitting in the chair of the person on trial, turned even paler. Umbridge was able to mobilize the power of the Aurors at will, which was given by Cornelius Fudge. This also means that once Umbridge abuses this power and makes an irreparable mistake, then he, the person who delegated the power, must be jointly responsible. Soon, the members of the Wizengamot discussed the cases of Fudge and Umbridge. After about an hour, Ms. Bones continued to preside over the trial. She said loudly, according to the laws of the Ministry of Magic, the defendant Cornelius Fudge should be sentenced to 30 years in Azkaban. Please raise your hands if you agree that the crime is established. As Ms. Bones' voice fell, everyone raised their hands. Ms. Bones said loudly, very good, the charges are established. Hearing Ms. Bones' words, Fudge's eyes widened, and he said in disbelief, what? Why are you trying me? What right do you have to try me? I'm Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic. I'm the Minister, you can't try me. Fudge yelled and struggled desperately. However, the moment he began to struggle, dozens of magic chains on the chair wrapped around Fudge's hands and feet, making Fudge completely unable to move. Please take the criminal Cornelius Fudge away and send him to Azkaban prison, Ms. Bones said in a cold tone, and her indifferent eyes watched the 2 Aurors lift Fudge up and lead him out of the 10th courtroom. Chapter 568. The first thing a new official does upon taking office is to set fire to the Death Eaters. After Fudge was taken out by the 2 Aurors, everyone in the 10th courtroom could clearly see a light coming from the door. It was the 2 Aurors who used a stunning spell to knock Fudge unconscious in order to stop him from struggling. After completing the trial of Fudge, Ms. Bones read out Umbridge's charges, and then said loudly, according to the laws of the Ministry of Magic, the defendant Dolores Umbridge should be sentenced to life imprisonment in Azkaban. Please raise your hands if you agree that the crime is established. Without any hesitation, everyone raised their hands at the first time. The reason is that the crime committed by Umbridge is too heinous. Whether it is abusing the power of the senior deputy minister of the Ministry of Magic, ordering Dementors to attack underage wizards, or using dark magic props to harm underage wizards, it is enough to send her to Azkaban for life. In addition to the charge of attacking a Hogwarts professor, Professor McGonagall, who is the mentor of most wizards present, Umbridge cannot escape the blame, even if she dies 1,000 times. Very good, the charges are established, Ms. Bones said in a deep voice. Aurors, please go to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry and arrest the criminal Dolores Umbridge. As Ms. Bones' voice fell, the other 2 Aurors guarding the 10th courtroom immediately received the order and walked out of the 10th courtroom. From the direction they left, it seemed that they did not go to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry immediately, but went to the Auror office to ask for support first. All criminals sentenced to life imprisonment in Azkaban prison are the most dangerous criminals in the eyes of these Aurors. In the eyes of many wizards, being imprisoned in Azkaban prison for life is more painful than death. After all, there is no so-called commutation of sentence in the British wizarding world. Once those criminals are sentenced to life imprisonment in Azkaban prison, they can only stay there for the rest of their lives until they die. Therefore, most criminals who know their fate after being arrested will choose to resist, and even risk their lives, to kill the Aurors who arrest them. Even though Umbridge's magic skills were not very good, the Aurors did not dare to look down on her. After the two auras left, Ms. Bones put away the scroll about Fudge and Umbridge's crimes and took out another list. Ms. Bones said loudly, "Next, we should elect a new Minister of Magic. The following is the list of candidates for the Minister of Magic: Barty Crouch Sr., Rufus Scrimgeour, Amelia Susan Bones, Ludo Bagman." The people on the candidate list are all directors of various departments of the Ministry of Magic, as well as directors of powerful offices including the Aura Office, and the name of Ms. Bones, who presided over the election, is also on it. After Ms. Bones finished reading the list, she looked outside the open door of the 10th courtroom. A Ministry of Magic employee with a slightly anxious look on his face asked, "Have all the votes of the wizarding public been counted?" The Wizengamot members had already voted on the impeachment of Fudge a week ago, and the reason why Fudge stepped down today was only because he forcibly delayed the counting date of the impeachment case to today. Therefore, the members of the Wizengamot and many high-ranking officials of the Ministry of Magic ignored Fudge's strong opposition and began to collect votes from wizards in the British wizarding world to elect the next Minister of Magic a week ago. As of today, more than 90% of the wizards in the British wizarding world have cast their votes, and the remaining less than 10% of wizards, most of whom live in seclusion in the mountains and forests, are ignorant of the world. Hearing Ms. Bones' words, the Ministry of Magic employee outside the door walked in like a big man and handed Ms. Bones a piece of parchment with the number of votes for each candidate. "Ms. Bones, the votes have been counted, and here are the results," said the Ministry of Magic employee. Ms. Bones nodded and reported the number of votes for each candidate. The result of this election was not surprising. Under the overwhelming publicity that Barty Crouch used the Daily Prophet, most wizards in the British wizarding world believed that he would be a great Minister of Magic. In addition, with the help of the Rowell family, Barty Crouch's votes were nearly 1,000 votes ahead of Scrimgeour, who came in second. Please raise your hands if you agree that Barty Crouch should be the Minister of Magic. Ms. Bones put away the parchment and said loudly. In the 10th courtroom, nearly 80% of the wizards raised their hands. Most of the wizards who raised their hands in favor were those who worked for the Rowell family, while the other part of the wizards believed that Barty Crouch was indeed qualified for the position of Minister of Magic. As for the remaining 20% of wizards who opposed, most of them were former subordinates of Fudge and others, as well as some wizards who were frightened by old Barty's vigorous style in the past year. However, with such a huge disparity in the proportion, the opposition of those wizards seemed harmless. The vote passed. Ms. Bones said loudly, "Old Barty Crouch is the new Minister of Magic." Old Barty stood up from his seat and bowed slightly to many colleagues. There was a bit of confidence on old Barty's face. Obviously, he was not surprised by his election. Old Barty walked down from his seat and took over Ms. Bones' position. He turned around and looked at everyone. He just said lightly, "It is an honor to be elected Minister of Magic. I, Barty Crouch Sr., solemnly swear to you that I will be loyal to the Ministry of Magic and lead the Ministry of Magic to better development and towards a better future. Maybe some people don't understand me and don't agree with my ideas, but it doesn't matter. I will give everyone enough time to accept it all. There is an old saying in the mysterious East that a new official will start 3 fires when he takes office. I want to burn the first fire on those Death Eaters. The Ministry of Magic today is not clean. It can be said that it is full of filth. In the past year, I have caught no less than 10 Death Eaters in the Ministry of Magic. This shows how full of loopholes and vulnerable the Ministry of Magic is today. Therefore, the first thing I have to do is to thoroughly investigate the entire Ministry of Magic. I hope that you can cooperate with my work. As for my second and third fires, I'm willing to give everyone some buffer time. I will hold a meeting to discuss these things in a week. Thank you all colleagues for your cooperation." Barty Sr.'s eyes were like torches, and his tone gradually became high from the initial indifference. Chapter 569 Umbridge died yesterday. After learning from old Barty that there were Death Eaters among the Ministry of Magic staff, and that more than 10 Death Eaters had been arrested in just 1 year, all the wizards in the Wizengamot were in an uproar. You know, they had never received any intelligence in this regard. "Minister Crouch, please tell me, why have we never received any intelligence about Death Eaters undercover in the Ministry of Magic?" A neutral member of the Wizengamot stood up and questioned old Barty. As a senior official in the Ministry of Magic, old Barty had the obligation to disclose the intelligence he had learned about Death Eaters to the Wizengamot and request the Wizengamot's intervention. But the Wizengamot had not heard of any other Death Eaters undercover in the Ministry of Magic except for the case of Death Eater Michael Landry. Old Barty chuckled and said, "Don't forget, the Minister of Magic at that time was Cornelius Fudge. Most of the Death Eaters I found at that time were openly working for Fudge. What do you think? If Fudge knew that there were Death Eaters under his command, would he have tried them immediately, or would he have suppressed the matter and just found an excuse to expel them and get away with it?" Old Barty repeated to the members of the Wizengamot what he had said to Scrimgeour. Everyone was silent after hearing what old Barty said. According to their understanding of Fudge, if Fudge knew that there were Death Eaters under his command, then his choice would most likely be the latter. At the same time, in Hogwarts Castle, it was already 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and Irina and other 5th year wizards all walked into the auditorium, which was the examination room for the History of Magic exam. Professor Marchbank stood in front of the auditorium, turned over the large hourglass used for countdown, and announced the start of the exam. However, just as everyone began to write furiously, the door of the auditorium suddenly opened. More than a dozen fully armed aurors walked in, attracting the attention of most of the young wizards who were taking the exam. "What are you doing here? We are taking an exam here, and we are taking an owl's exam here." Seeing these aurors who disturbed the exam, Professor Marchbank walked over with an unhappy look on her face, and she said in a deep voice, the head of these more than 10 fully armed aurors was Scrimgeour, the director of the Aura office. Scrimgeour knew that his behavior of breaking into the exam room was inappropriate. He apologized in a low voice and then said, "We are ordered to arrest the criminal Darlor's Umbridge. Please tell me where Umbridge is." Hearing Scrimgeour's words, Professor Marchbank was stunned. She said, "Umbridge died yesterday. Don't you know?" Scrimgeour's face showed surprise. He naturally didn't know the news of Umbridge's death. Otherwise he wouldn't have come here specially. Scrimgeour asked, "How did she die?" Professor Marchbanks replied, "She was killed by the explosion curse. Umbridge attacked the professors at Hogwarts last night and was then killed by 39 angry students. The 5 aurors who obeyed Umbridge were also seriously injured and were sent to St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries for treatment this morning." Professor Marchbanks took Scrimgeour and the aurors outside the Great Hall. After ensuring that they would not affect the young wizard's exam, he told Scrimgeour and the aurors everything that happened in Hagrid's hut last night. After learning what happened last night, all the aurors, including Scrimgeour, showed incredible expressions on their faces. Those students. How dare they kill Umbridge? You know, before today, she was still the senior deputy minister of magic. She was identified as a criminal in the trial this morning. Behind Scrimgeour, the aura named Corin said in disbelief. Professor Marchbank shrugged and said, "Obviously, some of them must have learned the inside information of the Ministry of Magic and knew that Fudge would be impeached and removed from office today, so they dared to do that." Professor Marchbank never participated in political affairs, but that didn't mean she knew nothing about these things. Scrimgeour frowned and said, "Professor Marchbank, can you give me the list of those students? In any case, they crossed the laws of the Ministry of Magic and killed Umbridge, so they should be investigated." Professor Marchbank said indifferently, "I think you should go back and report first. After all, the person you want to arrest is dead, isn't he? If you need that list, I think I should see the investigation order of the Ministry of Magic." As a professor, Professor Marchbank naturally favored those students. Moreover, in her eyes, there was nothing wrong with the actions of those students, except that the killing of Umbridge was a bit radical. Seeing Professor Marchbank's indifferent expression, Scrimgeour understood that he would not get any results if he continued to pester her. So, he nodded helplessly and said to the auras behind him, "Collect." Half an hour later, in the Ministry of Magic, the 10th courtroom. For Umbridge's case, old Barty, Ms. Bones and the members of the Wizengamot did not leave, but quietly waited for the auras to bring Umbridge back. However, they did not wait for Umbridge to be arrested, but instead waited for the news that Umbridge had died. The students of Hogwarts killed Umbridge. I think this has violated the laws of the Ministry of Magic. After learning the truth about Umbridge's death, a member of the Wizengamot said in a deep voice, Another member of the Wizengamot nodded and said, yes, according to the information fed back by the auras, a total of 39 students participated in this incident. They killed Umbridge and seriously injured the auras. When they did these things, Umbridge had not yet been dismissed, which means that they attacked the senior deputy minister of the Ministry of Magic and the auras. No, old Barty stood up, frowned, and retorted, don't forget, when those students attacked Umbridge and the auras, they were attacking the professors of Hogwarts. If we want to be serious, we can only think that they are protecting their professors. Old Barty knew more about what happened last night than anyone else present, and he knew better than anyone else present that Lin and the members of the DA army did not go there to protect the professor, but had long planned to murder Umbridge. After all, even the memories in the cloud synchronization memory bottle in old Barty's hand were synchronized to him by Lin after killing Umbridge. Chapter 570, Go to Gringotts. Hearing what old Barty said, the member of the Wizengamot hesitated. If the laws of the Ministry of Magic were strictly followed, then the 39 students of the DA army who attacked Umbridge, who had not yet been dismissed, would undoubtedly have violated the law, even though Umbridge was attacking Professor McGonagall at that time. But emotionally speaking, Professor McGonagall was also his professor when he was studying at Hogwarts, and his mentor. Those 39 students killed Umbridge, who attacked his mentor, and he should be grateful to those students. In the British wizarding world, people have greater power in defining the law, which is why every trial, even if the evidence is conclusive, requires a vote by the members of the Wizengamot. In my opinion, those 39 students acted bravely to protect their professor, and their killing of Umbridge was just their self-defense counterattack when Umbridge used dark magic to hurt these students. Old Barty said loudly. Many members of the Wizengamot were somewhat shaken. In their opinion, it was not worth it to let the 39 students pay the price for killing a criminal who should have been sentenced to life imprisonment in Azkaban. But old Barty's words gave them sufficient reasons to believe that those students were not guilty. Old Barty observed the expressions of the members of the Wizengamot, and then said softly, moreover, we can't let the parents of those students and other students who have suffered from Umbridge's dark magic feel disappointed. After Fudge, the Ministry of Magic can no longer afford to see its credibility decline further. As old Barty's voice fell, the remaining members of the Wizengamot who were still a little hesitant also confirmed their thoughts. Perhaps letting the parents of students and other students feel disappointed could not shake their belief in maintaining the authority of the law. But as old Barty said, after Fudge played the Ministry of Magic's good cards badly, the Ministry of Magic could no longer bear the consequences of the declining credibility. Vote, everyone, said Ms. Bones. Raise your hands if you agree that the 39 students who killed Dumbledore's Umbridge are guilty. Only 2 members of the Wizengamot who had been loyal to Fudge raised their hands. The rest of the people sat quietly in their seats, looking at the 2 members with strange eyes. Ms. Bones continued, please raise your hands if you agree that the 39 students are not guilty, except for the 2 members. Everyone raised their hands. Ms. Bones nodded slightly and said, very good, the charges are not established. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Hogwarts Castle, the Great Hall. Irina put down the quill in her hand and raised her hand to Professor Marchbank. What's wrong, child? Professor Marchbank came to Irina and asked. Irina said, Professor Marchbank, I have finished answering the questions. Can I apply to hand in the paper early? Hearing Irina's words, Professor Marchbank was a little surprised. The OWL's exam had a lot of questions, and some students didn't have time to finish answering them before the exam was over. In previous years, the fastest student to finish the exam was 2 hours after the exam started. In addition, given the importance of the OWL's exam, even if some students finished answering the questions ahead of time, they would check their papers again and again to avoid mistakes. But Irina planned to hand in her paper just 1 hour after the exam started, which had never happened in previous OWL's exams. Are you sure, kid? Professor Marchbank asked. From the previous practical exams, she could see that Irina's magic level was extraordinary, even surpassing all the auras she knew. But the history of magic did not represent the magic level of a young wizard. It was a test of the young wizard's memory ability. But as the examiner of this exam, Professor Marchbank would not advise her. She would just confirm with Irina according to the process. If Irina insisted on handing in her paper ahead of time, she would not stop her. Irina nodded gently and said, "Yes, Professor Marchbank." Professor Marchbank took Irina's paper and let her leave. After leaving the hall, Irina took out a portal key from her pocket and teleported to number 12 Grimmauld Place. At this time, Dumbledore, Green, Newt, Sirius and Lin had been waiting here for a long time. "Irina, this is your equipment." Lin handed a set of alchemical equipment to Irina. Irina took the alchemical equipment and briefly checked it. In addition to the alchemical headphones and the small metal ball with monitoring effect that she had seen that day, there was also an alchemical cloak, an alchemical goggles, and a disposable anti-magic wand. Lin En introduced. This cloak and goggles are both made of a large number of defensive alchemical arrays, which can resist most known black magic and physical damage. It can be said that except for ancient magic and the three unforgivables, other magic and physical attacks within our cognitive range are difficult to break its defense. Irina nodded slightly and put the alchemical cloak on herself. She was not surprised by the effects of these alchemical equipment. After all, the dozens of alchemical ornaments that Lin En gave her had similar effects. "Sirius, keep in touch at any time." Lin En looked at Sirius and said so. Sirius made a no problem gesture to Lin En and said, "Don't worry, I will activate the alchemical signal blocker made by Mr. Green, and then number 12 Grimmauld Place will maintain point-to-point communication with you." As Sirius spoke, he injected magic power into the metal pyramid in his hand. As an invisible magic wave spread, all alchemical signals that tried to pass through number 12 Grimmauld Place were intercepted. Irina took out a two-way mirror from her pocket. It was a group chat two-way mirror that was temporarily set up a week ago for the convenience of communication. She could communicate with Lin, Dumbledore, Green, Newt and Sirius in text in the two-way mirror. But now, even if she injected magic into the two-way mirror in her hand, the names of the 5 people that should have appeared were still silent, without any response. Then, Irina said something in the team channel of the alchemical headset, and the other 5 people heard her voice and responded. After Old Barty and others got the alchemical headset, the communication of the alchemical headset was divided into 2 channels, one for Lin and other combat personnel who participated in the robbery of Gringotts, and the other for the intelligence personnel such as Old Barty. Sirius was in both channels at the same time, and he was responsible for ensuring that information could be communicated effectively and in a timely manner. The alchemical signal blocker is operating normally, and the alchemical headset is operating normally, Irina said softly. "We can set off." Chapter 571. Fire God leads the way. Newt placed a bowler hat on the table. It was a timer door key. All 5 of them put their hands on the brim of the bowler hat. A white light lit up, and the figures of the 5 people disappeared in front of Sirius at the same time, and appeared outside Gringotts in Diagon Alley. At this time, many wizards gathered outside the gate of Gringotts, and they seemed to be shouting something. "Hand over the Horcrux of you-know-who. Gringotts harbors the Horcrux of you-know-who, and their hearts are damned. We strongly demand that Gringotts hand over the Horcrux. We can't let you-know-who continue to wreak havoc in the British wizarding world." After listening to the slogans of the wizards around for a while, Lin and Irina looked at each other and saw surprise in each other's eyes. Dumbledore, Green and Newt were also a little surprised. It seems that the report on Horcruxes published by Lin in the Daily Prophet has caused quite a stir in the British wizarding world. These wizards who gathered outside the gate of Gringotts to march and protest are the best proof. "Professor Dumbledore? Mr. All? Miss Lovell? Why are you here?" A wizard noticed Lin En and the others, and he spoke unexpectedly. The wizard's voice attracted the attention of the wizards around him, and more wizards discovered the existence of Lin En and the others. Similarly, many wizards recognized the identities of Green and Newt. "Isn't that the famous French alchemist Wallace and Green? I saw him on the card of the Chocolate Frog. He was with Professor Dumbledore and the others. Your attention is not right, right? I don't know any Green, but I can't make a mistake about Mr. Scamander." "Mr. Scamander? Is he the author of Fantastic Beasts, and Where to Find Them? He's here too? That old man next to Miss Lovell is him. I didn't expect all these celebrities to gather together." These wizards all started to talk, and they looked at the 5 people with admiration. Whether it is Albus Dumbledore, who is known as the greatest white wizard of this century, Lin En, the youngest demon level wizard, Newt Scamander, the author of Fantastic Beasts, and Where to Find Them, or Irina, who killed a large number of Death Eaters, and Wallace and Green, a famous French alchemist, they are all celebrities that they usually want to see but cannot. And now, these 5 people are gathered together. There must be something important to do. Thinking of this, a wizard asked tentatively, "Mr. Dumbledore, are you here because of the Horcrux published in the Daily Prophet?" We all saw the Daily Prophet saying that a Horcrux of the mysterious man was hidden in the vault of Gringotts, so we came here to protest and hope that Gringotts can hand over the Horcrux. Although he was shocked by the response brought by the Daily Prophet, Dumbledore still said with a smile, "Yes, we are here for the Horcrux." Hearing Dumbledore's words, these wizards all cheered. They had no doubt that Dumbledore could get the Horcrux. After all, he was the person they respected the most. Under the expectant eyes of the wizards, the 5 walked up the marble steps and headed towards the bronze door of Gringotts. I didn't expect that this report in the Daily Prophet would gather so many wizards after only one morning of fermentation. Lin said so. Irina chuckled and said, "In fact, with so many wizards guarding here, I'm afraid that, even if the Death Eaters want to transfer the Horcruxes, they will not agree." As Irina said, unless Voldemort comes in person, even if the Death Eaters come out in full force, it will be difficult to get a good deal in front of so many wizards. After crossing the first bronze door, the second silver door was engraved with the warning words, "Evil thieves will be punished." Lin and Irina looked at it with relish. "Come in, stranger, but beware of the consequences of greed. If you only ask for something that never belonged to you, you will be punished most severely. Therefore, if you want to take a fortune from our underground vault that never belonged to you, thief, you have been warned. Be careful that you will not get treasure, but bad retribution." After reading these lines, Lin and Irina followed Dumbledore and the other 2 into the Gringotts Hall. As early as 6 years ago, when he first came to Gringotts to withdraw money, Lin had already imagined the day when Gringotts would be robbed in the future. The same was true for Irina, who first came here to exchange pounds for gold galleons 5 years ago. Since the day Bellatrix put Hufflepuff's gold cup in Gringotts' vault, Gringotts was destined to be robbed one day, no matter how early or late that day came. "Mr. Dumbledore, are you here to withdraw money?" A goblin sitting behind the counter noticed Dumbledore and immediately walked over from behind the counter and asked respectfully. Dumbledore said softly, "Can you please ask your supervisor to come over?" The goblin said quickly, "Of course, Mr. Dumbledore." The goblin walked towards the counter, and after a while, another goblin who was much older followed it. The older goblin was a supervisor of Gringotts. "Mr. Dumbledore, is there anything I can do for you?" the goblin supervisor asked. Dumbledore smiled and said, "We have received accurate information that one of Voldemort's Horcruxes is hidden in the Lestrange family vault. I hope you can hand over the Horcrux to me, and I will destroy it." Hearing Dumbledore's words, the goblin supervisor said embarrassedly, "I'm sorry, Mr. Dumbledore, I don't have the authority to give you things in other wizards' vaults. That is not within my authority." Dumbledore asked, "Then, who has this authority? I hope to communicate with him." Seeing that Dumbledore was not giving in, the goblin supervisor's face gradually turned cold, and he said, "Excuse me, Mr. Dumbledore, none of us has this authority. In other words, it is unrealistic and impossible for you to get something in the vault that does not belong to you." Then, Dumbledore said softly, "We must get that Horcrux." Hearing Dumbledore's words, the goblin supervisor and the previous goblin both changed their faces. The goblin supervisor was even more alert. He asked, "Mr. Dumbledore, what do you mean? Do you want to rob Gringotts?" Dumbledore said happily, "Yes, sir." Vulcan leads the way. Dumbledore suddenly pulled out his wand and waved it violently. In an instant, a flash of fire appeared. Chapter 572. He deserves to be sent to Azkaban. Red flames erupted in the Hall of Gringotts. The blazing flames forced all the goblins and wizards who came here to withdraw money to crawl on the ground to avoid the high temperature of the flames. Dumbledore used ordinary magic flames instead of fiend fire to clear the way. Otherwise, with Dumbledore's magic level, all the goblins in the hall would probably die in an instant. Dumbledore, what are you going to do? Damn it, stop him. Many goblins shouted, and more goblin guards ran out from the doors leading to the underground vault of Gringotts, holding various alchemical weapons in their hands. Dumbledore looked indifferently at the goblins not far away who were on the verge of a fight, and said lightly, I'm sorry, everyone in Gringotts. For the sake of greater peace in the wizarding world and to destroy Voldemort's Horcruxes, I have to take some extraordinary measures. While Dumbledore was speaking, a goblin whose alchemical equipment seemed to be better than the goblin guards around him waved his silver sword and shouted, Crossbowman, volley. More than 30 goblin guards holding alchemical crossbows all pulled the triggers in their hands, and countless crossbow arrows engraved with alchemical arrays with the main attributes of destroying magic, sharp, and explosive broke through the air, and came straight to Dumbledore's face. If it were an ordinary wizard, the only result would be death when facing these crossbow arrows. The crossbow arrows engraved with the alchemical array with the main attribute of destroying magic can easily break the armor spell cast by most wizards, which is also the confidence of these goblins to compete with wizards. However, facing these crossbows, Dumbledore remained calm, and did not even make any movement. Swish! The black and red flames suddenly ignited, and the forbidden magic fire, along with Lin En's left hand wave, turned into a huge wall of fire that blocked Dumbledore. As mentioned before, although alchemy and magic are two different systems, the roots of both are magic, and magic is a basis for them to release their own power. Therefore, the forbidden magic fire can not only seal the magic of wizards, but also the magic flowing in other alchemical arrays. Under the suppression of the forbidden magic fire, the alchemical arrays on these alchemical crossbows have become ineffective, and the bodies of these metal crossbows are melted under the high temperature of the flames. Ziwi Hanksing. Behind Dumbledore's left, Irina shouted in a low voice, and swung her left hand in the direction of the goblin crossbowman. Hundreds of purple and golden stars burst out of the sky, cutting off the arms of the goblins holding alchemical crossbows like cutting melons and vegetables, and the impact of the purple and golden stars knocked the goblins who had lost their arms to the ground. Dumbledore's face was calm, and he slowly walked towards the door leading to the underground vault. Apart from releasing the Vulcan to clear the way at the beginning, he did not make any more movements. As for the attack of the goblins, Dumbledore's complete trust in his comrades allowed him to remain calm when facing the close-up attack. Green gently waved the wand in his hand, and 5 alchemical arrays were refined in a few seconds. The 5 alchemical arrays surrounded Green and quickly shot golden beams at the goblins that blocked them. The firepower suppression of Green's alchemical array made the goblins retreat step by step, and soon, the goblins' defense line had retreated to the door leading to the underground vault. However, the crowd was not in a hurry to advance, but moved forward steadily. In the process of advancing, Lin threw 5 small metal balls, which automatically attracted to various corners of Gringotts Hall, monitoring everything that happened here. There are quite a lot of wizards gathered in Diagon Alley. The Ministry of Magic has learned about your robbery of Gringotts. Sirius' voice sounded in the alchemical headset. At number 12 Grimmauld Place, Sirius looked solemnly at the surveillance screen of the Ministry of Magic Hall, where wizards kept pouring in. He immediately reported the intelligence here to Lin and other combat personnel and Old Barty. Outside the 10th courtroom, Old Barty, who had just finished the not guilty vote on the 39 young wizards of the DA army, walked out of the courtroom and lowered his eyes slightly. He gently pressed his right hand on the alchemical headset and said, I will try to delay time. After Fudge was found guilty, the chair with countless metal chains controlled him, so that Fudge was successfully arrested without any effective resistance. This killed the riot that Barty had thought might happen in the cradle. Fudge is such a waste, he can't even train a deadly warrior, he deserves to be sent to Azkaban. Barty cursed inwardly. If Fudge could be less of a waste, there should be a large number of masked black wizards breaking into the Ministry of Magic, rescuing the arrested Fudge, causing chaos in the Ministry of Magic, which is what every Minister of Magic who was dismissed and tried in the past would do. Less than 5 minutes later, someone reported the robbery of Gringotts to Barty. Looking at the high-ranking officials of the Ministry of Magic who were discussing how to support Gringotts and prevent the robbery, Barty asked calmly, do you really think that the Ministry of Magic should intervene in this matter? Hearing Barty's words, a high-ranking official of the Ministry of Magic frowned and looked at him, questioning. "Mr. Crouch, what do you mean? The wizard bank Gringotts was robbed. How can we sit back and do nothing?" Everyone else frowned and looked at Barty. Old Barty said in a deep voice, "The intelligence clearly stated that the people who carried out this robbery included our Wizengama chief Mr. Dumbledore and Mr. Owl, who has the level of a demon king. Do you think that the Ministry of Magic can stop them with its power?" Hearing this, many people were silent. There is no doubt that either Dumbledore or Lin has the power to wipe out the entire Ministry of Magic. Even before Lin was promoted to a Demon King level wizard, he had already defeated more than 20 auras by himself, let alone him, now that he is a Demon King? Exclamation mark. But we can't just do nothing, can we? Public opinion will crush us. Someone said so. Old Barty looked at the man and asked, "Really?" However, the intelligence we have obtained is that more than 200 wizards have gathered outside Gringotts, and their position is to support Dumbledore and destroy the Horcruxes hidden in Gringotts. Chapter 573 Alchemical Red Cannon, the Fairy's Weapon of War. Dumbledore and his men robbed Gringotts in order to destroy the Horcruxes, and you should have all seen the information about the Horcruxes in the Daily Prophet, right? The problem now is that public opinion is leaning towards Dumbledore and his men. If we intervene rashly, public opinion will be against us, said Old Barty. Scrimgeour pushed aside the people in front of him and walked in front of Old Barty. He said, "But the laws of the Ministry of Magic prohibit such robberies. As the Minister of Magic, you should be aware of this, right? In any case, as long as we still want to maintain the existing laws and order, we should send auras to help Gringotts." Including Scrimgeour. Among all the people present, no one was willing to help those damn goblins, and no one did not support Dumbledore's actions of robbing Gringotts and destroying the Horcruxes. But their identities forced them to respond to this. They can have subjective ideas, but as long as their positions in the Ministry of Magic are still there, their actions must stand on the proper position of the Ministry of Magic and make objective choices. Of course, Barty shrugged and chuckled. "I won't stop you from doing this, but we just need to show it to the public, right?" Scrimgeour frowned and asked, "Barty, what do you mean?" Barty nodded slightly and said, "Yes, just as you thought. Send out the auras, but not immediately. Let the bullets fly for a while, and wait until the matter at Gringotts is almost over. Then we will let the auras enter." Gringotts, underground vault. The purple flames completely separated the Gringotts lobby and the underground vault. The scorching heat could prevent any wizard or other goblin who wanted to enter the underground vault. Lin waved his wand, and a cart slowly drove over from the darkness. "Teacher, the task of cracking the control authority of the control system of this alchemical minecart is handed over to you." Lin tapped the cart with his wand, and countless dense alchemical arrays emerged from the inside of the cart and were presented to everyone intuitively. After using the secret method to force the hidden alchemy arrays to appear, Lin En turned around and used a fierce fire to force back the goblins that were chasing from another direction. Green nodded, and he removed the 5 alchemy arrays around him and turned to seriously study the alchemy minecart. The alchemy level of the goblins is second to none even in the French magic world. Even when Green was studying this alchemy minecart, it took a lot of time. The technical content of this alchemy minecart is not low. Whether it is the method of controlling its steering and reaching a specific destination, or the authority it grants to the goblins, Green needs to crack it personally. Before Green successfully cracks the operating authority of this alchemy minecart, Lin En and others must guard here and prevent the goblins' attacks from destroying the minecart. Yes, after discovering that their attacks could not break through Lin En's forbidden magic fire, the goblins changed their target of attack to the alchemy minecart. As long as they can destroy this alchemical minecart, it will take at least several hours for Lin En and others to find the vault of the Lestrange family according to the route in their memory. The magic breaking arrows are ineffective against them. Replace them with high explosive arrows. Shift the arrow trajectory and use the shock wave of the explosion to attack those damn invaders. The leading goblin ordered in a deep voice. Hearing the goblin's words, the other goblins holding alchemical crossbows threw their magic breaking arrows aside and installed high explosive arrows with orange-red arrowheads on their alchemical crossbows. With the order of the leading goblin, more than 80 high explosive arrows broke through the air. However, these high explosive arrows did not come in the direction of Lin En and others, but shot towards the rock wall above them. Boom. 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 Continuous explosions sounded, and high explosive arrows were inserted into the rock wall, and then exploded again. The rubble fell from the sky and hit the people below. Seeing this, Dumbledore just gently waved his wand, and the countless large and small pieces of rubble were suspended in the air. As Dumbledore waved his wand forward, they smashed in the direction of the goblins. The faces of the goblins changed drastically. Many goblins standing in front raised the alchemical silver shields in their hands, and violent magic fluctuations spread out. The alchemical silver shield actually extended a blue energy shield in all directions, blocking all the rubble. Damn it, push out that treasure from the muggle humans. The leading goblin cursed angrily, and it instructed the goblins beside it. Hearing the goblins' words, Lin En and Irina both frowned, and they had a bad premonition. Until 3 or 5 goblins jointly pushed the thing out, Lin En and Irina's faces became very ugly. Good guy, the red cannon. I saw a red cannon being slowly pushed over by the goblins, with countless alchemical arrays covering the surface of the red cannon, not to mention the more powerful alchemical arrays hidden inside the red cannon. Lin En had a vague feeling that the power of this red cannon might really threaten the Demon King level wizard. Unlike alchemists, who use alchemy on flying brooms, alchemical feather pens, flying carpets and other alchemical products for daily life, goblins, who also possessed advanced alchemy, applied all the alchemical knowledge they had mastered to the manufacture of weapons. Don't forget, goblins have never been famous for gringotts, but for the alchemical weapons they made. Hundreds of years ago, these goblins were able to create the Gryffindor Holy Sword, a magical weapon that could kill basilisks and even threaten Demon King level wizards. And now, hundreds of years have passed, there is no reason for these goblins' alchemical methods to regress. After learning from the war weapons of the muggles, the types of weapons made by these goblins have become more diverse, and the red cannon they pushed out is the best proof. Professor Dumbledore, stop them. Lin En roared, and the sky full of purple myrtle skyfire surged out and swept towards the direction of the alchemical red cannon. The goblins obviously guessed Lin En's intention. More and more goblins holding alchemical silver shields gathered in the direction of the alchemical red cannon. Energy shields with blue light stretched out, blocking the purple flames. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 574, Threatening the Demon King level alchemical means, and activating the forbidden magic scepter. Hearing Lin En's words, Dumbledore also noticed the alchemical red cannon. Dumbledore frowned slightly. The alchemical red cannon gave him a bad feeling. Dumbledore waved the wand in his hand up and down twice like a baton, and streams of water appeared out of thin air and shot towards the direction of the alchemical red cannon with great force. Water prison spell. Endless water rushed out and actually went straight through Lin En's Zhui Xianhuo. Without extinguishing the Zhui Xianhuo, it continuously bombarded the alchemical silver shields of the goblins, blocking the alchemical red cannon, consuming the magic power of the extended energy shield. The water flow came into contact with the Zhui Xianhuo and burst out white water vapor that submerged the entire passage. The water flow evaporated rapidly, and the steaming white water vapor carried extremely high temperature, eroding the goblins' alchemical silver shields. The magic power in the goblin standing in the front row was instantly absorbed by the alchemical silver shield in his hand. The extended energy shield quickly shattered after losing the support of magic power. The white water vapor carrying high temperature actually steamed the goblin, who lost his weapon in just a few breaths. Seeing that his attack combined with Lin En's Zhui Xianhuo caused so many casualties, Dumbledore hesitated and reduced the magic output of the water prison spell. Attack with all your strength, Professor Dumbledore. If the shells of the alchemical red cannon are fired, we may be able to save our lives with the power of the Demon King, but those goblins will die. If you want to reduce casualties, going all out is the best choice. Lin En roared. Dumbledore said nothing. He silently increased the magic output of the water prison spell. More power bombarded the alchemical silver shields held by the goblins. Rows of goblins were killed by the powerful force, but soon more goblins filled the positions of the dead goblins under the command of the leading goblin. While resisting the attacks of Lin and Dumbledore, the two goblins loaded a shell with dense alchemical arrays engraved on the surface into the alchemical red cannon. The authority of the alchemical minecart is in hand. Come up quickly. At this time, Green shouted to everyone. He was the first to turn over and enter the alchemical minecart, and then inserted the magic wand into the hole he made on the handle of the minecart. Hearing Green's words, Lin, Irina and Newt did not hesitate to fight and retreat, and turned over and entered the alchemical minecart. Dumbledore looked solemn as the goblins lit the fuse of the alchemical red cannon. After he was sure that it was too late to stop the firing of the alchemical red cannon, he waved his wand lightly, letting the magic power carry his body and fly backwards into the alchemical minecart. After everyone got on the car, Green immediately activated the alchemical minecart under him. The magic pattern booster he made at the rear of the minecart released a large amount of magic power, pushing the alchemical minecart along the railway towards the depths of the underground. Boom. But at this moment, a violent explosion sounded from the alchemical red cannon, and a cannonball carrying a special power that even Lin and Dumbledore could feel threatened exploded and attacked directly above everyone. Lin En and Dumbledore could feel the extremely terrifying power hidden in the shell, which was equivalent to the full force of any one of them. However, the power became more and more unstable as the shell flew out, and it seemed that it might explode at any time, pouring out the huge energy in all directions. Damn it, the magic forbidden scepter. Lin En gritted his teeth, and without any hesitation, he activated the magic forbidden scepter in his hand. Before making the plan to rob Gringotts, Lin En proposed that Gringotts might have a defensive force that could threaten the Demon King level wizards, but he did not expect that they would see this force that only existed in his imagination so soon. The invisible magic forbidden power spread in all directions with the magic forbidden scepter in Lin En's hand as the center. Wherever this ripple-like magic forbidden power passed, all magic power was banned, and all weapons that used magic power as an energy source lost their due effect. The magic pattern booster on the alchemical minecart under everyone lost its effect, which made the alchemical minecart continue to move along the track by inertia, and Green also lost the ability to control the alchemical minecart. Faced with the situation of the minecart out of control, everyone's eyes were filled with great relief. Before the magic forbidden scepter was activated, the huge energy from the alchemical shells had already swept to a position less than 1 meter behind the alchemical minecart. It can be imagined that if Lin En had not activated the magic forbidden scepter in time, then the huge energy would have completely swallowed them up in an instant. Perhaps Lin En and Dumbledore, relying on their own advancement to the Demon King level wizard, had obtained sublimated physical strength and powerful magical power, and could withstand the attack of the alchemical shells and survive. But Irina, Green and Newt would probably be evaporated in an instant. I'm afraid only the teacher can make such a powerful alchemy shell. Green turned his head and looked at the power that was emitting a fierce light, but gradually dissipated under the suppression of the forbidden magic power. He said with lingering fear, a powerful alchemist can create an army by himself. Nicholas Flamel can do this, and so can the great alchemists behind the goblins. The great alchemist among the goblins does not need to show up. The weapons he made alone have the power to threaten the Demon King level wizards. Damn it. What did they do? Why did the weapons made by the master himself lose their effect? After seeing Lin En and others riding the alchemy minecart safely out of his sight, the leading goblin was furious. You know, before the forbidden magic scepter was activated, the power of the alchemy shells had already evaporated more than 50 goblins standing in the front. How could this goblin not be angry when his own side suffered so many casualties, but the enemy was unscathed? At the same time, in the Great Hall of Hogwarts Castle, Harry looked at the test paper in his hand in confusion. The questions on the history of magic on the test paper made him dizzy. He envied Irina for being able to finish the questions in just 1 hour and leave early, but he could only suffer in this examination room. Harry recalled the knowledge points of the history of magic that he had just reviewed yesterday and thought about the answers to the questions in front of him, but in the process of thinking, his head became more and more dizzy, as if some force was interfering with him, making him unable to think and fall into a coma. Finally, his head fell between his arms and he fainted. Chapter 575, A Transformable Alchemy Array. Novel, but not brilliant. Harry felt that everything in front of him was covered by thick fog, just like the countless times he entered the illusion array created by Lin, and entered the process of the illusion test. When the thick fog in front of him dissipated, he found that he was no longer in the hall, but the scene that appeared in front of him was a place he was very familiar with, and had visited countless times in his dreams at night, the Department of Mysteries. Harry walked in the dim and cool corridor of the Department of Mysteries again. He felt that he seemed to have something to do, and that thing he was going to do was in this Department of Mysteries. He walked with firm, decisive steps, occasionally jogging a few steps. He believed that this time he would finally reach the destination that he had never reached in his dreams before. The black door of the Department of Mysteries opened for him as usual, and he stood in a circular room with many doors. Harry walked straight across the stone floor and passed through the second door. Spots of light danced on the walls and floor, and strange instruments were beeping, but he thought he didn't have time to take a closer look. A voice in his heart told him that he must hurry. Harry ran a few steps and came to the third door, which opened like the other doors. He was in a cathedral-like room full of shelves and spheres. At this moment, Harry felt his heart beating particularly fast. He believed that he would definitely get there this time. Harry walked to the 97th row of shelves, turned left, and hurried along the aisle between the two rows of shelves. However, Harry saw that there seemed to be something on the floor at the end of the aisle, as if a black thing was crawling on the ground, like a wounded animal. For some reason, Harry's heart tightened, perhaps because of fear, or perhaps because of excitement. Suddenly, a cold, high-pitched voice came out of his own mouth, and there was no human kindness in that voice. "Go get it. Quick, take it down. I can't touch it, but you can touch it." As the cold voice fell, the black thing on the floor moved slightly. Harry saw a pale slender hand stretched out from the front of his arm, holding a wand in his hand, and he heard the cold, high-pitched voice coming out of his mouth. "Crucio." The man on the floor screamed in pain, and tried to stand up, but twisted and fell down. Harry found that he was laughing uncontrollably. He raised his wand and the sound of the spell stopped, but the figure on the floor was groaning, and no longer moved. "Lord Voldemort is waiting." Harry heard a voice coming from behind him. It was the voice of Rodolphus Lestrange. The man on the floor had trembling arms. He slowly lifted his shoulders a few inches from the ground, and raised his head. It was a face that had become extremely haggard, and blood-stained under torture. It was twisted by pain, but it was full of unyielding fortitude. It was Harry's godfather, Sirius Black. Sirius whispered, "Unless you kill me. In the end, I will definitely do it," Harry said in a cold voice, "but you have to take it off for me first, Black. Do you think you feel the pain? Think about it. We have plenty of time, and no one can hear your screams." But just when Harry felt that he had put down the wand in his hand, he heard someone screaming, and someone screamed, and fell on the cold stone floor next to the hot table. Harry hit the ground heavily, and then woke up. His mouth was still screaming, the scar on his forehead was like a fire, and the scene of the hall reappeared around him. Gringotts, underground vault. After the 5 people descended about 100 meters deep into the underground vault on the out-of-control alchemy minecart, Green regained control of the alchemy minecart. He took control of the alchemy minecart again, and drove quickly towards the direction of the Lestrange vault according to the route in Bellatrix's memory. After an unknown amount of time, after the alchemy minecart quickly turned a sharp corner, everyone saw a rushing waterfall rushing on the rails. With the speed of the alchemy minecart, it would probably take less than 5 seconds for the huge waterfall to soak them like drowned rats. But at this moment, Green suddenly rotated his magic wand, and the magic pattern booster stopped working, and began to reverse at the same time. A huge amount of magic power surged in the opposite direction, abruptly stopping the momentum of the alchemy minecart. After the alchemy minecart stopped, Green turned over and got off the alchemy minecart and walked step by step to the anti-thief waterfall, while Lin En followed closely behind Green. Lin En waved his magic wand lightly, and a mysterious magic power spread out, covering the anti-thief waterfall and its source. Then, a dense alchemical array quickly emerged, and the golden runes were suspended in the air and rotated around the anti-thief waterfall in a specific trajectory. This turned out to be an unfixed alchemical array. In the process of alchemy, alchemists mostly engraved the alchemical array on alchemical creations. Even when Lin En and Green used the alchemical array to fight, they engraved the alchemical array in the air to stabilize it and exert its due effect. But now, the alchemical array presented in front of Lin En and Green is constantly changing. Every 10 seconds, the arrangement order of the alchemical runes in the alchemical array will change once, becoming another alchemical array. This means that, if Green wants to crack it, he must master all the possible changes of this alchemical array. A changeable alchemical array? This is an alchemical method I have never heard of. It is novel, but not very clever. Green commented, and he began to crack the alchemical array of the anti-thief waterfall. This alchemical array can change into a variety of forms, and the upper limit of its changeability is the number of permutations and combinations of all effective alchemical runes. However, the number of alchemical runes that can be engraved on an alchemical array is limited, which also means that the variations of this changeable alchemical array are also limited. While Green was cracking the anti-thief waterfall, Lin En and Irina also waved their wands tacitly. Ziwei Xianhou and Ziwei Froststar appeared one after another. Although Ziwei Xianhou is flame and Ziwei Froststar is ice, the essence of both is the power of stars, which allows the two to release their power at the same time without worrying about the two being hostile to each other. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.